Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm trying to calculate the ratio of people here who had too much to drink last night and aren't feeling all that great to those who were at the Starbucks roastery and are feeling really jazzed up. I don't know. Oh, we got one. Boom. Rock and roll. Awesome. So I kind of want to know, how late was everybody up last night? I know I got 3.5 hours of sleep. Who's up past midnight? It's got to be most of you, right? Keep your hand up if you're past 1. Well, it's fewer. Who's past 2? Dude. Past 3. Whoa! I know that Peter was Facebooking at 4 a.m. this morning. Past 5? Okay. You are the warriors. You are here. It is the second day of Postback. I'm super excited for this day. We had a great day yesterday. It was wonderful. I mean, I still have that song stuck in my head. At Postback, you can be a new man. Oh, that's the best I do. Come on. At Postback, you sing. Come on. Haven't got Peter's voice, but it's a little hard to be a new man early in the morning, isn't it? A new woman, I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, we had a great day yesterday. I hope everybody here caught the performance that opened the conference. Peter and crew singing and dancing. The Hamilton musical takeoff was amazing. Very, very cool. Multiverse. Exciting? Is that cool? Super cool. I mean, absolutely amazing. I mean, every marketer needs a way to know, am I winning or am I losing? What's the score? You want to be able to look up at the scoreboard and say, hey, how are we doing? It's hard to do that today. It's very hard to do that. I tweeted about that. I called it Excel Hell and Dashboard Damnation. So we're trying to free you of that, and that's very, very, very cool. We had some great speeches, some people unpacking some really, really cool things about mobile marketing, getting really, really into the nitty-gritty, and those are all available. As you know, they're all being taped, they're all video, so all the horrible and all the wonderful and all the excellent and all the insightful moments are there for you. Very, very good, and some great panels. Was everybody here at EMP last night? Yeah, cool. Did you see Richard Sherman? Did you know Richard Sherman was going to be there? Would you have come if you had known? Anyways, he was there, and believe it or not, one Tune employee in the finance department told Richard Sherman, there was I don't have all the details here, but he had lost a bet somehow on what Richard Sherman had not done during the season. He said, you owe me $5. Sherman pulls out his wallet and gives him $5, and that is Ryan, by the way, will never spend those $5 ever. That was very, very cool. So, day 2 awaits, and we are super pumped, and I hope you are too, to have Jennifer Wise with us. Very, very, very cool. She's smart, she's insightful, she's influential. You name a publication in our space, she's been quoted by it. You name a conference in our space, she's been there, she's spoken there. She has a Bachelor of Science in Economics. She's got a Master's in Information Design. She had a background originally in the agency world, and she's a longtime analyst and researcher. Please welcome Jennifer Wise.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Pretty good turnout after last night. I hope everyone has had their share of coffee, maybe some Advil in some cases. After seeing yesterday's morning opening with that Hamilton take and knowing that I was going first thing this morning, which could be a tough crowd, I was thinking maybe I would do a little Hamilton thing myself. But hold the applause, because I thought back to my theater days. I used to do a lot of theater in middle school and high school, did pretty well. And then I decided that musicals were the next frontier. So I tried out for the lead in a musical. I made it pretty far, and then came the singing auditions, after which I found out I had been given a non-speaking role in the play, because they didn't even want to risk that I might try to sing on the stage. So I won't torture you with my singing today. And so I will just dive into the presentation instead. So I work at Forrester Research, and I'm here today to present on the topic of who will win the battle for mobile moments. And to give you just some quick background, if you're not familiar with Forrester, we work with businesses and technologies to help them deliver customer engagement strategies and thrive off of technology change. And I sit in the marketing research department, and I cover mobile. So mobile marketing strategies, as well as the mobile marketing technology landscape. And so what I do is I pull from our proprietary first-party data about consumer behaviors, what devices they own, how they use them, how they engage with other and with brands. We also have some mobile behavioral tracking data that we use to see how consumers are actually using their mobile devices. And then we speak with marketers to hear what your biggest challenges are, right? How you're setting the strategy. And then we speak with technology solutions to see how their solutions are helping to execute. So what I'm going to do today is to pull from all of those insights to talk about three core things. First, we'll look at how your customer brand expectations has evolved. Then we'll talk about what is the new marketing imperative to deliver to your customer in mobile moments. And then we'll look at what technologies are going to get you there and have some fun thinking about the future of the technology landscape and who's going to capture these customer moments and what they're going to do with them. So we'll start with the mobile customer, who, as a hint, data shows that they're pretty demanding with their expectations. So we know that smartphone adoption is nearing saturation globally. It was growing rapidly. This just shows the adoption by the end of 2015, right? We're almost 3/4 of the population in large markets already had mobile devices, still increasing. And today, we find that we project that there are going to be 5.4 billion smartphones globally by 2020. So mobile's only going to become more important as a touch point. We also see from that mobile behavioral tracking data that consumers spend, on average, 126 minutes just on their mobile phone every day. And this was before Pokemon game came out. So this is very possible that there's been a huge spike, right? And we know that there are 1.5 million apps in the App Store. So they have a lot of different ways to engage with companies and with brands, and that they select, on average, 25 of these apps to engage with in a month. But when we look at the time spent, we see that 80% of that time spent within apps is within a top 5. And we also know that mobile plays an important role across that entire customer life cycle, right? From discovering brands to exploring them to buying them. And just one data point here to prove that is that more than 1/3 of US online smartphone owners indicate that they research goods on their devices at least weekly. So people are equipped with mobile phones, they're spending a lot of time on those mobile phones, they're engaging via apps, and they're using their mobile device to help make important brand and purchase decisions. So this ushers in something that we call the mobile mind shift, because it is important to note that this is more than just a shift in time spent with the customer. It's actually a fundamental shift in the way that they engage and what their expectations are. Right? I no longer have to plan ahead. I can just act today. I expect the information that I want to be there. And that is our definition of the mobile mind shift. It's the expectation that I can get what I want in my immediate context and moments of need. So I, the consumer, expect any given information or service to be available to me on any device of my choosing, right, mobile or otherwise, and I expect it now. And data shows that I expect it to be relevant to me, right, contextually relevant to me and relevant to my interest. And the challenge here is that every good experience that I have further reinforces this, and every bad experience disappoints me. Right? We can even think about a simple task like getting directions. So I'm from Boston. Back in the day, I would have gone to MapQuest on my desktop computer, put in the directions of where I'm staying, put in the directions to here, mapped the location, printed it out, and carried it around with me and looked at it as I walked around Seattle. Now, I just go, step out of the hotel, expect Google to know where I am in less than a second, expect it to be able to find the address of where I'm going if I just start to enter the name of it, and I just go. And if Google for some reason doesn't know where I am, or if it takes not even a minute, right, a few seconds for it to know my location, I get really angry at Google, right? So this is the risk of disappointing consumers with their expectations. And so what you care about are the mobile moments. These become the next battleground to win, serve, and retain customers. And so a mobile moment we define as a point in time and space, which sounds very, very lofty, but it's because it can happen anytime and anywhere when someone pulls out a device to get what they want in their immediate context, right? So that moment when I need directions and I go to my mobile phone. That moment when I'm in store and I want to know the ratings and reviews, right? So I fire up an app. This is the moment that brands care about delivering in and that technologies care about accessing. And there are 30 billion of these happening in the US online a day. When we think about how many devices people own just in the US, and that they fire up their device to glance at it between 150 and 200 times a day, 30 billion moments just in the US, just on a mobile device to reach them. And this is only going to get bigger, right? There are going to be even more engagement opportunities that are going to multiply and morph over time as more devices and more technologies are introduced. In fact, we project that mobile moments are going to shrink into micro moments. So what we mean there is that not every interaction has to be lengthy, right? I'm not always going to go and look up directions or look at ratings and reviews. Sometimes I just want to glance at my phone, right, to read that message, to see that push notification, to know that I've completed my steps for the day or what have you. And research suggests that about 75% of moments today on mobile are these micro moments. The moment where you put information in front of your consumer that they can act on rapidly, right? Understand and act on rapidly. They're also going to, of course, extend beyond mobile phones, right? We all know this. We have our tablet devices and our desktops, but we also have emerging technologies too. You can even just think of the Apple Watch, right, where now your alerts are going to be available there. So these are going to continue to splinter. They're going to appear proactively in context. So now I have to go to my device in that mobile moment to tell it that I need something. In the future, my device will know that I need it, and it will proactively tell me. We're already seeing this. For example, Google Now knows that I have an event in my calendar, it knows the address, it knows the traffic, and it sends me an alert before I'm even thinking about it to let me know that I have to leave in 10 minutes to get there in time. And they're going to disappear into the ether. Customers aren't even going to know that they're happening. And as a quick example of that, here are a few scenarios that we have where this will happen. And I'll walk through this sort of car scenario that we see here. Let's say you're returning from the gym, you're in your car, you're listening to a song. And then you walk into your house, the song automatically starts playing on your in-home stereo because it was synced to your car and it knows what you were listening to. Also, through sensors in your shirt, it knows that your body temperature is high because you were just working out. And so it sends a signal to your Nest to say, at this time, we're usually 77 degrees, but let's go down to 70 to help them with their body temperature, right? And the consumer has to do nothing, right? The moments have disappeared. So what does this mean for everyone? Well, marketing is only going to get harder. There are going to be new connections available, new sources of data, Internet of Things, new location, and new touch points, right? New devices in which these micro moments are going to be happening, moments within the home, and new media, right? People are going to go to different sites. Snapchat, relatively new and very, very popular, right? Rolling out more and more advertising opportunities every day. Now we have Pokemon Go. Maybe that's a new platform in and of itself. And all of this boils up into new experiences, right? To piece all of this together to meet that customer expectation. So this is what the marketer is going to have to do. It doesn't look that easy, right? I know that many are already struggling with it, but this is going to be that new mandate, and marketers are going to need to deliver these experiences and need to partner with the right technologies to do so. So what does this mean? So first we'll talk about the brands. It's time to shift your approach to customer engagement. Your customer has undergone the mobile mind shift. It's time to undergo your own. Because old engagement tactics, even those just from digital, from online, right, still relatively new, don't work in this mobile world. It changes the who, what, when, where, and why of engagement. It does so in the following ways. The who shifts from that customer segment to that individual. The what, in terms of what you actually send them, it's no longer that prefabricated message that you're going to send in an email at 9 a.m. It's going to be a personalized message that's dynamically assembled because it's relevant to that customer, and maybe they don't check their email, they just read push notifications, so you're going to send that instead. It's also when to engage. Before triggered by the company event, now will be triggered by that customer context. Where, and this language can sometimes seem odd, but before it was any location, meaning you had no control over the location. It was wherever they go online on their desktop, right, or when they're at work. Now, you have control because they have devices with them and with you can engage at any time, so you can pick an explicit location like when they're outside a store. And the why. Before it was to serve the business need or to react to the customer because they raised their hand to say that they need help. And now it is proactive to deliver on that customer need before they even ask to it. But marketers have some work to do, right? This is that ideal state, but when you actually talk to marketers, we know they have trouble getting there. So 44% of the marketers that we survey at Forrester are still at what we call the shrink and squeeze stage of mobile maturity. This is the first of 4 stages, and at this stage, what you're doing is just migrating over what you've done for desktop and other digital channels for mobile, just so you're there, just so it appears, but it's not necessarily optimized. We also see that 35%, only 35%, have best practices to guide their technology decisions. Only a fifth of them have the budget that they need to execute. And 55% are still experimenting with things like measurement, right, which are so core to building and optimizing mobile experiences. So as a result, they're falling short in these mobile moments today. Again, they're porting their strategies. They're losing insights also because they're working with a wide portfolio of point solutions who understand disparate parts of that customer journey but haven't brought it all together to be able to deliver with relevancy. And they're not planning across business units, because mobile touches every part of that business, from advertising and discovery to exploring to when you're in the store to customer service, every single component. So they need help, right? This is what technology needs to deliver for them. They have to ease the data management burden so that they can understand their customer. They have to be able to act with speed and agility. They have to unify that experience, and they have to be able to execute marketing in a coherent, simple way. So technology, got some work to do, right? We have to catch up to these customers' real-time demands. And to do this, it demands something that we call the contextual marketing engine, which marries together systems of insight, where you're collecting that data on the customer and analytics, with systems of engagement, when you're actually executing and making the call of how to reach them. And the data and analytics are what fuel that engine so that you understand the customer. And the insights and automation are what drive the engine. Execute, actually engage, connect with the channels, dynamically assemble that message. But today, this isn't so easy. So thinking just even more about your digital strategies, which are much more founded than mobile, right, which is still emerging, we see that there are a lot of different technologies at play and that they're still at different sides of this technology house. And if you read these lists, right, you might see some of the companies that you either work with or that you are, right? Predictive analytics, mobile analytics, location analytics, loyalty management. So this is confusing as it is. And then we layer in mobile, which we have these new mobile technologies which are coming together to help solve some of the mobile unique problems. There's all these new data sources. I don't know how to bring them together, how to feed them into this insights. I have this app. How do I know how to analyze it? What are my customers doing? How can I monetize? So we see a lot of different technologies here, such as location intelligence platforms, who take all of these location hits and actually turn it into insights so that you can augment your customer profile because of it, so that you can bridge online-offline measurement. We have cross-device identity management, mobile analytics, in-app analytics, and as you can see, they're still beginning to start. Right at this bottom axis, they're going from the creation phase where they're new and they're building to eventually equilibrium, where they are run of the mill, everyone has them, there's nowhere else to go. And a lot of them are still at these early stages, right? Still working out these problems. So what technologies are going to win here? Right? There's a lot to play with. As a marketer, you have this mandate to deliver to that customer in that moment, to engage with them in real time and pull together all of these insights and analytics and measurement to make good decisions and engage in that right moment. But there's all of these technologies out there to choose from, right? And then there's also all of these different touch points for you to think about with mobile. So how do you get started? So it comes down to this battle of the mobile moments. Whoever owns the mobile moment can plug into the mobile moment and can execute in that mobile moment sort of wins from the technology side. And so who does that? For mobile dominance, you need three things, all three things. You want to ask, who has the consumer? So who has this mobile audience base where the mobile moments are happening? Who has the data? So who knows this customer at this level and has wrangled into insights so that they can act on it in a sophisticated way? And then who has the technology to do this really sophisticated execution? You need all three of these: the customer, the data, and the technology. So we're beginning to see now, it's a really interesting time, that the battle, both for owning the mobile moments and then having the technology to execute it, is starting. And so in these next few slides, I'm going to talk about the way that things are beginning to evolve, both from first the touch point perspective, then the data perspective, and then looking at some of the technology players and what might happen. So first, we're going to see intelligent agents battling brands and bots. I know we've talked about chatbots a lot at this really hot topic, and they're going to battle it out to capture the customer mobile moments. Because we know that customers today have so many digital touch points, and they want to consolidate them, right? They want less. They feel weighed down by all these digital touch points. So if they can have just a few that can deliver on their needs, they're going to work with just those few. And those are the companies that will own that mobile moment. So who will these be? Well, today, we see a lot of them. When we looked at that behavior and we saw 80% is spent within 5 apps, probably unsurprisingly, they were social networks, they were search engines, and then there were a few large brands that people go to frequently. And so we see the likes of Facebook, Snapchat, and then someone like Nike Plus, a brand whose app goes above and beyond just selling their products to actually becoming a running buddy that's with them every single day, right? And adding value so that they have this large Nike Plus community of millions, right? So these are the types of companies that today own the majority of mobile moments. But there are new ones that pose a threat. These are the chat bots, messaging apps, or whatever we want to call them today. And what they're doing is becoming services on top of other platforms that already have attention, and they are letting other companies plug into them. So now if you want to talk with a retailer, I no longer have to go to that specific app. I can go to Facebook Messenger and chat with them through that. So I'm no longer going to that retailer's app in this scenario, right? That retailer has lost direct contact with me in that mobile moment because it's happening through this intermediary, which is the messaging app. And because they're able to shortcut to relevant experiences to customers, because the customers want fewer digital touch points, we will see them begin to take mobile moments. But they won't win the day. There are the intelligent agents, a topic near and dear to my heart, such as the Google Now, Cortana, Siri, Alexa, who know so much about the customer and are providing so much value in helping to manage their day-to-day lives. and are companies that the consumer trusts to have this data, that they stand to own more mobile moments, right? Sort of in the future, the next 3 to 5 years here. Already, Google knows where I'm flying to. When I arrived here, I just went into Google Now and it told me what the temperature was, what were some things around me to do, what was my travel itinerary. I didn't have to go to any other sites. And so as they become more and more powerful with their artificial intelligence capabilities, as they also begin to integrate conversational UI like the messaging apps, and as more consumers begin to use them and integrate them into their lives, and brands plug in as well, they will begin to capture mobile moments. So brands are going to have to think about the fact that they will own fewer and that they will have to borrow these moments from these types of companies and platforms. So what happens from the data front? So here we have a few different players that are going to own data in different ways and have this different type of data economy. So what we have on the right is the brands, the apps of today, the companies. You own customer data. We've been doing this for decades with CRM systems, right? You know your customer. You know how they engage with you. You have app analytics in place so that you know how they're engaging with your apps and what their preferences are. And then you also have customer context from what they've told you, if they trust you. Right? So what are their preferences for communication? What are topics that they care about? Do they want you to integrate with their Fitbit information, right? Will they let you know their location? And in this case, what a company can tell is who is their customer, are they inside my store, how can I serve them in that moment? But that data and that context sort of exists within the silo. So then we have our platforms, once again, who begin to go beyond the siloed approach, such as Alexa. So Amazon already knows a lot about you. They know your purchasing behavior. They know a lot of the retail activities that you do. But now, through these APIs with brands, third-party data integrations, they're able to know even more. I can order my Domino's pizza through Amazon. I can search kayak for flights that I want under $500 to somewhere tropical through Alexa, right? So Alexa, these integrations, and Amazon is gathering more and more data about me from a myriad of different sources and getting a bigger picture of who I am as the consumer. So they have this ecosystem approach to data. And then we have these new data sources that are coming in all the time, right? Sensors, your car sensor, your thermostat at the home, sort of the Internet of Things, which is going to know even more contextual data around the customer coming from different sources, and that will exist sort of as this unique stream of data that these other two will try to integrate with. So this is where the consumer data can live in a myriad of different ways. So how does this boil up into the technology? Right? Because remember, you need the customer, you need the data, but then you need the technology. And today, nobody has it all. Right? We know Facebook, Google, Apple, they own a lot of the mobile moments, and they're continuing to own more, right? By launching their own branded apps like Apple News through these third-party integrations, Facebook by launching Facebook Messenger and new services. But what they don't have is the technology yet. And then we have the mobile point solutions, and we also have the existing marketing suites out there who have the technology in place, but don't necessarily have that same access to the customer and the data. So we're going to see a few different things come to play here. And I'll explain these further in the next slide. But as a teaser, we'll see that mobile moment owners are going to acquire. These platforms are going to try to build up their technology chops so that they can be the ones to execute and deliver in the mobile moments that they own. We see the mobile-first technology companies are going to continue to innovate. Mobile is tricky. Mobile is new. They are small. They are agile. They're speedy, right? They're able to do this. And so they're going to be the ones to help sort of at the ground level understand how to tie your technology and data together to execute in real time. And then our cloud vendors are going to rest on their client laurels for a while, right? Sort of stay in tune with where marketer maturity is, but then they're going to rise to the rescue of these open ecosystems by growing their mobile capabilities so that customers and brands can reach mobile moments anywhere they're occurring. So what does this play out as? Who will Pac-Man their way to dominance? So first we start with the young mobile point solutions. A lot of people think that these aren't necessarily contenders. They're smaller, they're new, they're sort of these near-term Band-Aid solutions while we figure out mobile. But that's not the case, right? They're agile, they're on the ground, they're understanding these data sources in a way that, for example, the cloud vendors aren't yet thinking about or executing or integrating. Right, so they hold a lot of potential. But as we saw in that marketing technology radar, a lot of them are new and trying to fix different pockets, whether it's piecing together across devices, whether it's understanding what's happening in app, whether it's actually delivering messages in app, right? They're all sort of from different spaces. So first thing they're going to do is acquire or partner with one another to allow for a more holistic approach. Then we see these marketing cloud vendors, Pac-Man, the mobile point solutions. So today, they are not where innovation is coming from, to be honest. And the reason for that is that many are public, and so what they want to do is think near term about what will drive results, and what will drive results is executing on what your clients are asking for today, not what they need to ask for tomorrow. So what they're going to do is focus on that and then pick up point solutions as customer demand gets there. And then we have the platform giants, right, which I alluded to in these other slides, which are going to have so much audience and data that they may even acquire one of these marketing cloud solutions to become sort of this giant who owns and executes in the mobile moment, can harness all their first-party data to deliver. So this is one sort of scenario where we can see technology going. But that's not necessarily what will happen. There can be disruptors to this case. For example, one of the platforms may have a data breach, right? And people block off all their data and then they lose that power. A new platform can come to rise, which owns that mobile moment, and they begin to enter this sort of battle as well. Or the mobile point solutions can scale and make enough, sort of build out their solutions enough that they begin to be able to deliver in the mobile moment and then scale to other channels as well and sort of start from that ground up approach. So what should you look at for today? Right? Not all of these things are happening yet. The intelligent agents are still a couple years out from sort of the world dominance that we just explained here. So this year, the biggest things to look for are, from the marketing perspective, focus on delivering customer value and not messages. Right? Think about that new engagement model where you're delivering on their needs and context. Look at these platforms and ecosystems that are rising. It is good that we were talking about chatbots so much during this because they are owning more of those mobile moments. And think about what it means. Should you be thinking about creating or developing an integration with one of them so that you own that customer moment, or so that you're there when they look for you instead of one of your competitors, right? To gain that competitive advantage. And from the technology side, look for mobile technology acquisitions and partnerships, right, some of which we've been hearing about while we've been here, to deliver on this contextual marketing engine vision for mobile. So these are some of the things to look out for. Thank you for your time. I'll be hanging around if anyone has any questions about this. And good luck facing this future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. I'll keep you for just a moment here. You will not be surprised that we do have some sort of back channel among the marketing department at Tune, right? And so yes. I'm just watching this right here, and you know how there's J-Lo and there's, I don't know, A-Rod and other celebrities. Yeah. You are J-Wise now, officially.
I like it.
Watching J-Wise.
J-Dubs would have been a little fancier, but you know, I'll take it.
Okay. Watching J-Wise, she's good. And the other one, she's really good. And then somebody else, Kara, says, she's great. Was she at EMP last night? And I said, no, she was in bed at 8 p.m.
I'm pleading the fifth. Yeah, I figured that I had to sleep to bring the energy for everybody here.
Boom.
So.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Our next session, we're going to dive right deep into app marketing. Now, this will come as no surprise to anybody. This is a very competitive business, and there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of money that Facebook is making from it. There's a lot of money that other ad networks are making from it. But it's changing. Nobody cares about the install anymore. It's about the engagement. what happens after, what happens when people are actually using your app, and if they actually purchase something or engage deeper with your app, maybe watch ads or other things like that. There's also bots coming around, and integrations between apps, and integrations between apps and web, which we're also going to talk about a little later. To talk deeper about these things, we'd love to bring out Stuart Rogers and a panel of mParticle, Button, and MoLabs. Please welcome Stuart. Hey.
See. Well, it is awesome to see so many people here today. Just a little round of applause if you were at EMP last night. Even more awesome that you're actually here today. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to talk about the future of app marketing. And this is a really interesting conversation to be had because we live in a world where we have 2,300 apps launching every single day across both app stores. Factually, though, most of those apps are just clones of apps that are still there. They're being created by bots. But that still means that there are several hundred apps per day being launched across both the major app stores. That's a huge amount of competition. Competition is driving up the price of acquisition if you're using paid media to get people into your app. Organic is becoming incredibly important. Chatbots are around the corner and they're starting to have some kind of impact, but as of yet, we haven't seen a lot of commerce examples within the chatbot universe. Joining me to talk about all of these things and more is Mike Dudas and Michael Katz and Jim Payne, and I will let them do a small introduction to tell you a little bit more about what they're doing in this space and what's interesting. Mike, over to you.
Absolutely. So Button is pioneering a new customer acquisition and engagement channel on mobile and giving app marketers a new way to acquire customers and transactions. So historically, organic marketing, app install advertising and re-engagement advertising as a channel have been the primary ways to acquire new customers and re-engage them. Button is pioneering a new one, which is what we call contextual commerce. We give you as an app marketer the ability to create a button that is a representation of your service. If you're Uber, it's a representation of the rides you provide, OpenTable, a representation of the tables you provide. And then we work with those commerce companies to place those buttons inside of publisher environments. We work with publishers who represent 150 million monthly active users, and we place those buttons in highly contextual, highly relevant placements. I'm looking at a restaurant review, and I see a button that allows me to take an Uber to that restaurant or allows me to book an OpenTable reservation or order food via DoorDash. So we turn publisher content into actionable content, and it benefits both the publishers as well as the app marketers through this new channel. We've become the affiliation system of record on mobile for a number of really large companies, including Uber, including Caviar, and including Hotels.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Jim.
My name is Jim Payne. It's great to be here. It's really a pleasure to be part of this conference. By way of background, I started a company called MoPub back in 2010. We did a lot of mobile advertising, programmatic acquisition, and that kind of thing, and really created the category there. And MoPub obviously still a very large player in that space. After we sold that to Twitter, I left and started a mobile incubator in New York. And basically what we do now is think about some of these new categories that Mike was mentioning and ways to create new applications, new consumer experiences, and new infrastructure enablement for all these different interesting categories that are emerging, mobile video being one that we're particularly interested in. And I joined Excel Partners last year as entrepreneur in residence. And so basically what we're working on is finding what that next big thing is and iterating quickly to build that next great mobile experience.
Excellent. And Michael.
Cool. So mParticle is a data platform built for apps across mobile devices and other connected devices, allowing you to unify your data and then seamlessly connect it to and from any platform that you use to essentially run and grow your business. So what that means is start to break down a lot of the data silos that exist that prevent you from being able to ask and answer really complex questions about your users and what they're doing, and tie together all of that user behavior across all your various channels. So we are the data platform of record for companies like Airbnb, Spotify, King.com, Zappos, Postmates, and a whole host of other folks.
Excellent, thanks. I mean, let's get into the elephant in the room straight away. Let's talk about conversational UI, or as people like to call it, chatbots. At Mobile Beat last week, we just had chatbot after chatbot after chatbot, because all the data is telling us in our research that they're becoming an important thing. And we're seeing lots of news around the chatbot arena. There's lots of really smart things going on in that space, and factually, they do help shorten the purchase cycle, from the point of finding a brand to talk to, getting through to actually buying something from that brand is shorter in, say, something like Facebook Messenger than it is in the app experience of searching for an app, using keywords, finding an app, deciding which one to download, then downloading it, hoping it gives you the right response. And if it doesn't, you've got to start that cycle again. And then eventually you might buy something. But Mike, I know you have some strong feelings about chatbots and especially commerce. Why don't you talk about it first?
Absolutely. So I would almost contradict everything that was stated there, in the sense that, and I mean that with great respect because I know you talked with a number of great companies at that session. What we found is that, particularly in commerce, so chatbots are wonderful. We found with our commerce partners for customer service, for solving issues, for utility, but for actually taking a transactional event, every commerce company we've spoken with that has taken chatbot as a sort of top of funnel and then tried to get somebody all the way through to a transaction, they found very little usage, much higher drop-off rates, and many, many more steps to complete a transaction, literally 2, 3, 4x steps to complete a transaction. Why put users through that pain, particularly when users haven't indicated that chat platforms are areas where they want to transact? So, we're not seeing successes. Our partners are not seeing successes currently in commerce with chatbots. And frankly, you hear a lot about the WeChat analogy. And hey, we want to become the WeChat of the US, but WeChat actually doesn't perpetuate commerce in a chat format. They tried that years ago. It didn't work. And it's actually more sort of mini apps inside of the WeChat platform.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that point. I think it's true that the chatbot phenomenon in marketing has been mostly around the AI-enabled experience, where deep learning is going to make it possible to have a conversation with a robot that's going to be a fulfilling and effective and quick conversation. And that's just decidedly not the experience today. Exactly. I think it's quite a few years away from that. That being said, it's absolutely true that consumer user behavior is shifting towards more messaging interfaces across all sorts of platforms. So not only is messaging a really great way to drive viral growth for a particular consumer property, let's say, but it's also a great way for brands to stay in touch with their users. And so, in fact, we just did an investment in a company that's building infrastructure for chat, because essentially the real trick is going to be having a brand be existing on 8 to 10 different chat platforms, be successful on all those different platforms, tie in all the different CRM and data about a particular user from internal back-end systems, and then manifest that information in a customer service type of interaction. I think that's going to be pretty large. But ultimately, if people think that chatbots are going to be the next app store, there's going to have to be a platform from one of the large vendors that's going to have to support that, support distribution, promote these new experiences, and actually build something upon which people can build businesses. And I think with Facebook's platform launched several years ago, I'm not sure that we see a lot of independent developers rushing towards partnering with Facebook to build a business on top of the Messenger platform just yet, because they're a little bit wary about that. And Apple doesn't really have an offering there either. Yeah. So the problem that we see when we think about doing bots as a as a consumer experience. It's just that we don't have distribution and we don't have a reliable platform partner just yet. But I think the kernel of messaging being a compelling user experience is very real.
Yeah, I mean, the hype cycle's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it happened pretty fast and furious. But I think to your point, inherently there's a ton of risk on building a business on a single API, right? I think that there's a number of instances over the past number of years where companies have done that, and the rug has been completely pulled out from underneath them. Chatbots are actually nothing like brand new, right? It's really just kind of the hype around it. I think one of the more successful chatbot experiences that people point to is like food ordering and delivery, and it's essentially a shortcut, right? And I think in those instances it makes sense where it's a repeatable purchase and it's usually one-dimensional. It's not like a very complex ordering process where there's a ton of discovery.
Like movie tickets or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can create a shortcut, right? You can tweet the pizza emoji and have a pizza show up, but all that is a shortcut to your favorite, right? So the simplification aspect, I think, is definitely a powerful one, right? Because we're always on the go, and that really is the heart of mobile. How can you make my life easier? How can you reduce the friction in the transactional experience? But I'm with Dudis here, where I think it's going to be a long road ahead if anybody's betting the future of their company on their chatbot experience.
And just one last point. I love that you mentioned pizza. It feels as if innovation in new touch points and consumer touch points for commerce, the pizza folks are at the forefront. So literally, like, just watch what Pizza Hut, Domino's, and others are doing, and definitely copy, because they are exceptionally successful at finding new touch points to make it simple for folks to access their goods.
Yeah, I'd also just quickly add, I mean, it's tough. I mean, we work with some amazing clients who've invested a ton in their app experience, and to think that a simple chatbot is going to either replicate or replace that, I think completely discounts a ton of the R&D that has been invested in creating this amazing consumer experience. So the way that I think about it is more like bots are going to be about convenience, whereas apps are going to be much more about loyalty.
Yeah, if a bot platform emerged that provided more distribution than, let's say, the App Store does, then I could see the argument for launching a bot as a lightweight way to engage users, maybe drive them to the app experience. Right. That doesn't exist right now. So the app is absolutely the better experience in most cases. Yeah.
And it's an interesting situation we're in. I mean, Facebook opened up the Messenger API in April. Since April to this point, I think they have now 18,000 chatbots that have launched since April. And most of those are just people messing around with conversational chatbots. It's not serious. There are some serious people on there. You've got the likes of Fandango for movie tickets, and Domino's and Wingstop and many others, all looking at this space and understanding
Uber's
it.
in there, yeah.
To your point about customer service, the interesting thing about focusing on customer service as an acquisition and customer strategy is that in my most recent survey, I asked people what they were spending their mobile marketing budget on, and the vast majority of the money is going to user acquisition. Well, I would wager that most of that user acquisition is for low-quality, high-volume users, because there's still this mobile marketing push where people say, if I can just get on the chart, then we'll make millions, right? And so they're just buying users, buying users, buying users. How valuable is it to really push harder into advocacy and customer service and buying maybe high-quality users, but then nurturing those so that every single one of those brings in 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 additional organic users?
Yeah, so a button, we would far prefer to constrain our supply. In other words, only appear in a very contextually relevant environment where a user clearly wants to take an action related to a product. Hey, I'm reviewing this beautiful hotel in Crete. I'd like to be linked through to this hotel that's being reviewed. So it's a very qualified user, somebody interested in the product, and so we'll bring them through there. from a customer service perspective, as sort of a separate question, I've seen, for example, United has done something really interesting where they've moved a ton of their on-flight entertainment into their app. So they've literally there's no, seat back TV on many United airplanes. Literally, it's like bring your own device, and if you have the app downloaded, it's this value add service that they've put into the app, and that's helping them acquire users organically. And to me, that falls under great customer service.
Except that the films they've got on there aren't necessarily bang up to date. So
Fair point. Fair point.
it does suck a little bit.
Yeah, Mike's making a really important point, which is that the days of just essentially spending your way to the top of the chart is over for everybody except the very large spenders, the Candy Crushes of the world who can afford to spend $1 billion a year on acquisitions. If you don't have that $1 billion, you really have to be smarter about the users that you're acquiring, and you want to acquire users who are going to stick around in the app long enough. And retention has been an issue that's come up several times over the past 2 days here at this conference. You want to be able to find the users in that haystack of people who are actually going to have a successful, pleasant, positive experience with your app and then come back to it many times over the course of that customer lifetime. And so I really like what the guys at Button are doing because of that. It's essentially reaching out to that user at the point where they're going to have a great experience with the travel booking app rather than having just that be a random banner ad somewhere when you're not in that purchase intent mode.
Yeah, and customer service, just quick add to that, I think involves, hey, when I click a link, when I tap a button, when I tap something in a publisher environment, don't surprise me with redirects and other things. Treat me like a customer that you want to acquire with high value, right? Give me high quality inventory, show it to me, qualify that I want to go to the App Store to install this before I do, and just treat your users with respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think the common fiber across all of it in terms of making good decisions, whether it comes down to UA or engagement, once they are an acquired user, or from a CRM perspective, is data, right? Understanding your customers, being able to not only capture the data but also unify all of the data, right? Because I think every organization goes through the same progression, right? It starts with engineers having to query the database, right? And then that doesn't work after a while, so they have to implement a set number of tools, and those tools work and they get you from point A to point B, and then you end up outgrowing these tools. And so what ends up inevitably happening is you try to fit square pegs into round holes, and you grow out of these tools. And then everybody just ends up dumping data to a data warehouse to be able to answer and ask more complex questions, and that's really tough because it takes the power out of the hands of the business users completely, and it puts it back onto the engineers, and then everybody reaches a breaking point, right? So in order to be able to address things like user acquisition, retention, CRM, if it's like help desk or live support, it's really about consolidating those data silos, unifying them, abstracting them, and being able to automate all the different connection points.
So what does that mobile stack look like? If we're going to build a mobile stack, and we do build stacks, I mean, in marketing technology, the average company is using 20 separate tools connected together in a stack in order to do the job. Marketers are using 5 tools a day on average just to get their job done from that list of 20. And I've actually had respondents come back to me and tell me they're using 100 tools in a stack. Mm-hmm. That's complex. It's not just complex from the point of view of the user. It's difficult for all of the vendors that are making these tools, because we are still in a situation where marketing technology, especially mobile marketing technology, is pre the chasm. We haven't gone into mainstream yet. And one of the big issues there is because all of the tools have to move at the same time across the chasm. It's not just one moving, they all rely upon each other. So how do we build that stack? What does it look like for mobile marketing? What's the best combination of tools for us to elevate our mobile app marketing and get the best results?
I mean, I think it starts with you look at like the life cycle of an app, from initial development all the way through user acquisition and retention, right? So what's the first tool that everybody usually implements? Is actually crash reporting. Like, let me just make sure my app can stay open when people start to use it, right? And then you have to start to implement like product analytics tools, things like GA or mixed panel or amplitude, optimize your user flows, understand your cohorts, and really, optimize the organic experience. And then once that's in a pretty solid state, then it's about going out and playing offense and acquiring users and using tools like Tune to allow you to be able to go out and do that in a sophisticated fashion, right? And then once people are into the funnel, keeping them engaged. Through various forms of messaging, whether it's email, push, retargeting, things like that. And then you start to see some of these additional tools that have come to market, things like A/B testing and various CRM solutions.
Yeah, and for us at Button, we are effectively the only mobile app affiliate solution, correct? So it's necessary to work with us because there aren't other options. And the way that we can help with the marketing stack is by doing information sharing, right? So working with folks like mParticle, working with folks like Tune, who already work with our existing customers, and ensuring that we're both receiving and passing data so that they can view that data and those insights and that performance in the dashboard of their preference.
Having been on both sides of the marketing transaction, both as building end user experiences now and previously as an ad tech vendor, essentially, I actually look at fragmentation as being a good thing. A lot of people think it's too complicated. I've got all these tools. Maybe 100 is too many. But I like fragmentation because what it allows me to do is pick the right partner for each part of the stack that I need. So I can pick the right crash reporting tool for me, and there's 4 choices. And I can pick the best marketing channels for my app, which is going to be Button if it's more of a commerce experience, but if it's more of a media experience, it might be Facebook and Google as channels. So I like the fact that I have all that choice. And I think the interesting problem of today is basically making it possible for those choices to be made in a way where there's a lot less friction. And that's been the story of mobile up until this point, is just the amount of friction working with software that has to ship through an app store that can't be constantly updated on the server side, where you actually have to ship bits out to your distribution partner and have those bits land on the phone possibly days later. That's created the whole category of folks like of mParticle and Mike, and what he's working on, trying to make it possible for one app to be able to select the right partners for each piece of the stack from the best that is the best fit for my particular needs in my particular end user category.
And I would just add, like, where the value really gets like created or destroyed is in between all of the different touch points where your data ends up, right? One of the big challenges of having data sitting in a number of different platforms is that in using each one of those platforms, you'll only achieve local maximums, right? You need to be able to unify all of that data to break out beyond that and achieve more of a global maximum.
So look, I really like that you started with crash reporting. It speaks to just the last thing we can squeeze into this awesome session. But this audience have been giving us their full attention, and thank you for that. But factually, our mobile attention spans have been reducing dramatically year on year. 85% reduction year on year in mobile attention spans, 35% reduction quarter on quarter in terms of time spent in app. That means that we're basically getting in and getting out very quickly. It also means that if your product is not perfect from day one, people are going to not get you past the 7-second mark, let alone 7 minutes, right? So, that old adage of just ship it, it'll be fine, we'll iterate, that can't work anymore. That, Facebook have got to pull all those posters off the wall because they're just not going to work anymore. So what can we do? What can we give this audience in terms of a tangible thing that they could do around maybe soft launching, tactics, different ways that you can get to perfection in your target market by maybe launching in smaller, like-minded markets elsewhere and those kinds of things? What are the tactics?
So I'll start with one quick anecdote, or one quick point, which is time or attention in the commerce sphere. The ability to get somebody in and out of your app fast with what they wanted to purchase or book is actually a great metric, right? You want folks getting what they need in the least amount of time. So we look at it very differently. I think it's a better question. That the question is more directed at the publisher side, right?
Right.
So you work with more sort of publishers, I would say, on that than we do.
I mean, I think one of the reasons I've always liked what you guys are doing is because it's not just good for the marketer and the publisher. It's also good for the consumer, right? I don't think anybody in this room would argue that historically mobile ads have been very challenging, right? There's just a better way to do it, because when you think about mobile and the heart of the mobile experience, it's about transactions. How can I make your life easier? How can I press a button and have a car show up, right? Like that's Uber. How can I press a button and have anything delivered to my apartment or house, right? That's Postmates. So those kind of like magical moments and those incredible consumer experiences, how do you create that seamless experience inside another app, connecting to other apps? And that's what I love about what those guys are doing.
So yeah, he basically just sold my company better than me. So apologies for being negligent there.
There'll be some money transactions.
Yeah, the publisher piece is key. Is we actually are getting folks comfortable with short session times. We call it FOLO, fear of linking out. But like publishers need to get more comfortable with linking out if they deliver that content, that action that the user wants, because it will lead to greater trust and the user will come back more often because they'll appreciate that product, that service they discovered through that publisher app environment.
Last word on this, Jim?
Sure. I think from my perspective, the thing that you need to do, because attention spans are decreasing and there's a million great experiences you can have on your mobile phone, is that you've got to absolutely thrill the user immediately. You don't have time anymore to do these complicated onboarding processes. And perfection, I think, for a product used to mean super high polished, high depth, very feature rich, long, complicated experience, a tool that can do a lot of things. But I think these days, in order to really break through the noise, you have to deliver something to the consumer that they immediately get value from, and immediately want to tell their friends about. And that's really the only way to break through the noise, because you can't afford to acquire your way to users. It's really got to be thrilling enough for people to want to spread the word. And Mike brought up some great examples of that, where you press a button and a car shows up. That's a thrilling moment that is out of the box, doesn't require any configuration for the user to do, and of course they can get deeper into the tool as they become a more habituated user. But the most important thing is grabbing the person in the very, very T=0 moment.
Fantastic. Hey, listen, this has been awesome. We could talk for hours, but I'm afraid we can't because they won't let us. And we've got through the whole session without mentioning Pokemon Go, so congratulations on that, guys.
We will allow you to put a button in to call an Uber to go catch that Pokemon, all right?
Stop.
There you go.
So I'd like to just thank Mike and Jim, and Michael, please give them a warm round of applause.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Stuart and crew. Great job.
Thanks, John.
I really can't tell you what the back channel was saying about that panel, but no, they were good. They were good. They were awesome. It's wonderful. Excellent. You may have heard that we had a Clash Royale tournament here, and you may actually have participated. Apparently, we had 484 players, and the tournament ended at 10 a.m. this morning. We don't know the winners yet. It's a little challenging. Barbarian King 23 doesn't really translate to somebody. She who slays donkeys. Not quite sure. So we're figuring that out. We will have some announcement for you when we have. There will be 5 winners. There will be 5 prizes. I'm taking it on faith that they're awesome. Cool. So next session. You want engagement in your app. You need engagement in your app. You want good D3, D7 retention, D30, hey? We want everything. And obviously you want monetization. And you're going to adjust your monetization depending on the cohort that is coming in and the type of user that you've got. So we want to talk about these things. We're going to bring out Dan Koch, Tune's own Dan Koch, to talk about these with guests from Today Ticks and Stars Entertainment. Dan, come on out. Hey.
Well, hello, everyone. Sarah, Lauren, and I actually were back in the green room having a very stimulating conversation about Ray Kurzweil's talk yesterday. And so we've all agreed to heck with all the mobile marketing talk. We're just going to roundtable that for a little bit for the next half an hour or so. So about the singularity. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We're actually the topic of discussion is the keys to a successful mobile strategy. And so we're going to be talking with Sarah and Lauren here about how do you stay ahead of the curve? How do you do things successfully? How is this space changing? Where does it need to change to? And how do you stay ahead of the curve? So without further ado, I'll allow them to introduce themselves. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Budnick. I'm the head of marketing for a company called Today Tix. We are for last-minute theater tickets. We're now in about 7 cities in the U.S. and the U.K. And expanding to another 10 to 15 cities over the next year.
Hi, I'm Lauren Husson, Director of Product and Affiliate Marketing. I oversee all of our paid marketing and affiliate partner marketing partner marketing opportunities.
Great. So what's going to be great about this talk is we're going to hear 2 very interesting and different perspectives. So we're going to see what it takes to stay ahead of the curve from the perspective of being a mobile primary company, a mobile first company, and also from the perspective of a company that's got ties to traditional media that's moving and, no pun intended, mobilizing right now and getting deeper and deeper into the mobile space. So it's going to be really interesting to walk through this. So to kick things off, this is going to be a very familiar question for those who are at the breakout panel I was moderating yesterday, but I think it's always important to establish and start here. What does it take to measure success? So for whatever you're trying to do, what does it mean to win? What's your scoreboard? When you're staying ahead of the curve, what does that actually mean? So when you're staying ahead of the curve, how are you actually measuring that? What is your scoreboard? What are you optimizing for?
Ultimately for me, it's ticket sales. And there's hundreds of little metrics that roll up into indicating that we're doing the right thing to get people, capture them wherever they might be and drive them ultimately towards that sale. So it's about having a really efficient user acquisition strategy. It's about having a retention engagement program that's moving people towards that first purchase. We back all of our user acquisition stuff out to a cost per first purchase, acquiring a real customer. And then, what are we doing to really generate some awareness in the market? We have an interesting model in the sense that we launch in a brand new market where there's zero awareness about our product. And so in a way, we kind of start over. And so we've got this truly multi-local strategy where we have to kind of come in and build those users up and then start to move them through the funnel. So we've done a lot more user brand awareness as well over the past 6 months. So a good PR strategy and some above-the-line media that kind of helps make the user acquisition stuff more effective. So end of the day, backing out to a CPA and ultimately ticket sales and ROI on marketing spend.
Well, for us, we launched 2012 with our TV applications. And really back then, the authenticated product meant that it was tied to your TV provider. So you could log in from DirecTV using your account. And recently, in April, we launched our OTT product. And that kind of changed everything. Before, it was really just a cost per install that we were looking at because we couldn't monetize the product. It was already associated to your account. But now that we have this OTT product, we're really looking at cost per sub. That's kind of bottom line. That's what we look at. And then, other KPIs that we have really have to do with engagement, usage, what content are people engaging with, and our original series are really our differentiator in content. And so we want to make sure that what we're doing is promoting it effectively to drive that engagement.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to unpack right there, and it's a great segue. So, again, what's exciting and also frightening about mobile marketing specifically is how new and how fast it is. Again, we really are effectively only 8 years in at least the mobile app world as it is right now, and yet here we all are. And so, in order to understand what it takes to be ahead of the curve, you've got to let's talk about the history, actually, of how we've gotten to where we are. So, Sarah, you've already mentioned, for example, some of the new things you're diving into. In the last 12, 18 months, what are the new things that are on your horizon? What are the new things that you've tried? How does that play into the strategy for what's now essential for how you do your day-to-day?
Yeah, we started focusing really on UA and really direct marketing approaches. And what we found is that when we come into a new market, the metrics for success backed out really badly. Because when there was zero awareness in a new city and we're coming in trying to sell theater tickets, which is kind of this niche product, you know, we found that it just wasn't backing out. And so how do we kind of create that awareness, create that buzz, generate interest in our product before we're really measuring on like a cost per, you know, first purchase basis? And so we really invested more in PR and figuring out how we could get ourselves in front of customers. And another big thing that we're investing in now is content as well. I mean, we're app only. You can only transact with us on the app. So for a long time, the idea of really investing in web and you know, connecting with people on the internet just didn't seem to back out because we had to ultimately capture them everywhere else and just drive them into, you know, a native app. But we're really starting to invest more in that and seeing kind of the ROI back out better because, of course, it's media you don't have to pay for. So we're doing a lot more on a content strategy over the next 6 to 8 months. And because we're multi-local and, you know, theater's different city to city. So Broadway and off-Broadway is much different than when you're in Chicago and you're talking improv and Second City and I.O. So how do we really kind of cater that content strategy and that messaging in each city? So that's much more of a focus now for us than it was a year and a half ago when we were just like, you know, really looking at like cost per, you know, install and backing that out.
For us, we had a lot of changes. So I mentioned that in April we launched our OTT product. And along with that was an entire rebrand. So our previous TV products, we had 3 different applications. It was called Stars Play, Encore Play, and Movieflex Play. And when we rebranded, we took all 3 apps and put them into one app. And we also took the approach of combining the authenticated TV provider application idea and the OTT product into one application. So regardless of how you get Stars now, you can log in, right? And so with that whole rebrand, it was also the change of how we are marketing everything because we no longer have the other separate networks that we're marketing specifically. We have one application. And I think that was kind of a big deal for us because now we as we used to look at cost per install, we're driving installs, but we know that some of those are already still tied to their TV provider, and then we're driving the installs of those that are trying to actually purchase OTT. So it's a kind of a different landscape for us from where we were before to where we are now.
Got it. And that opens up a really interesting vein and something that's increasingly, certainly something we've discussed a lot here at Postback already, which is the concept of omni-channel marketing. So for example, you mentioned basically providing sort of air support or soft cover for entering a new market where you're using traditional media, you're doing PR, you're doing kind of that sort of outreach that softens up in advance of trying to drive installs. And so let me just ask you up front, the phrase omni-channel or the term omni-channel, what does that actually mean to you? When you hear that, how do you relate that to what you're doing, if at all?
I think it's about eliminating all of the barriers that exist in trying to get someone to, you know, see you somewhere, go to the app store, download an app, register for the app, enter your credit card information, and finally make a purchase. And when that was really the crux of my marketing strategy overall, it just, like I said, it just didn't back out. It was really hard to make it back out. So I think talking about how do we kind of spread ourselves around and have people bumping into us in different places, and how do we give incentives to actually do things to engage with us before you're actually going to buy tickets. So we did things like we created the first ever mobile lottery for theater shows. And, you know, a lot of Broadway shows have done rush type programs where you show up early in the morning and stand outside and you know, wait for tickets, lottery programs, but they've never done it on a mobile device. And so we really pitched them hard on that for a while. We actually did Hamilton's first lottery at the Public Theater, which we really wanted that to kind of transition to Broadway, but they ended up growing their own for Broadway. So we unfortunately didn't get that one. But it was a way for us to then, we gave incentives for, get an extra entry in the lottery if you share via social. So suddenly we were able to say to the show, look, we're going to generate a lot of buzz about your show on Twitter and on Facebook and places where people are going and consuming media, and then people can tap through and register for this lottery without ever having to download our app. So it was really about getting people to interact with us in different places before we then eventually try to drive them then into the app and get them interested enough that they're wanting to then go through and buy those tickets.
For media omnichannel, we look at where we're launched right now, and we're launched on iOS devices, we're launched on Android devices, we're launched on Android TV, we're launched on Apple TV, we just launched on the Roku. So it's when I think of omnichannel, I think of everything mobile and above and beyond that. So it's gaining new users and new subscribers in the way that they want to engage in the content. And so if it's on their tablet or if it's on their TV, those are the different devices and different channels where we're looking to be to make sure that we're actually getting that message to the person with how they like to engage.
Got it. So, omnichannel running across devices, then it opens up the question, and what's become a very hot technology question is measuring across all those and using the technology to actually link those together. So, for example, one major driver right now, Apple's been pushing universal links in a very hard way, for example, to unify those experiences, and that's really just one example of a greater movement towards better omnichannel measurement. We're trying to smooth over those experiences. So when it comes from a technological perspective, in terms of how to unite those channels or how to measure across channels, how to measure that one thing you're doing in one channel is actually leading to better downloads downstream or actually uniting that, how, if at all, are you doing that? Or how is that a challenge that you're dealing with right now?
Yeah, deep linking is definitely something that we do when we're advertising show products. So a lot of when we're doing user acquisition marketing and things that's very direct, the stuff that's led with show products converts a lot better than just us trying to get you really excited about a theater app, that you can download where you might want to go see theater someday. So deep linking is really important in those because we really want to create the best experience and just bring people exactly to where they want to go. We've also tried to be really creative about links that have kind of like an omni-directional nature to them. So if you're on a desktop and you click on a lottery, where exactly do we want you to go? If you're on an iPad and you click on this lottery and you don't have the app, where exactly do we want you to go? And we've gotten really creative about kind of building that functionality into our linking so that we can send people to various different places to either consume information if that's really what they're trying to do because they've never heard of one of our lotteries and they want to check that out before they really engage more with us, or whether they have our app and we want to send them right in there to enter the lottery that day or to set an alert for a show that doesn't have tickets available yet. So it's really just about thinking about where they are, what kind of device they're on, and what their current intent is, and then sending them to the right place.
So the deep linking strategy for us, our main campaign is on iOS and Android. And currently, if you're able to click on one of our banners, it's going to link you right to the App Store to download the app. And we have a 7-day free trial for those that we're trying to get into our OTT side. And if you're on the authenticated side, you can already log in and use it. I think it's more important for us from an engagement standpoint as we're trying to use our own social to actually be able to deep link to specific content and have it go right into the app. Right now we have kind of a workaround, but the good thing is that the approach that we took from a mobile UI standpoint, it looks almost exactly like the app. So once you actually hit playback, that does take you right to the asset. And so right now as a workaround, I think universal links is going to be something that helps dramatically and will take out that secondary step. So it's a more seamless integration.
That's interesting. Universal links brings up this interesting dichotomy in how mobile marketing is approached or can be approached right now, where there's marketing the app and then there's marketing through the app. So, for example, if you're marketing specific content, specific stars content, versus just trying to get them to download the app, it's two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. In the same way, instead of trying to get someone really excited about downloading a theater tickets app, they get them excited about a show through which they can go to Today Tix to actually purchase. It's two different sides of the same thing. So when it comes to dealing with that balance between, how much you're just trying to drive user acquisition in terms of downloads versus ongoing engagement, trying to drive the conversion for users who say already have the app or have an offer, or you're just trying, it doesn't really matter where they go, just so long as they hit that conversion point. How do you balance that right now? Is that a balance that you find changing over the last 12 months?
Yeah, it depends for us on the life cycle of a market. So, when we first launch a market, we're just trying to get as many users as we can. And we're qualifying those users by backing it out to a cost per first purchase. So we're getting the wrong users if they, never make a sale, or if it's just costing way too much to eventually get everyone over that hump. For more established markets where we've got, 6 or 7 months of data and we can see what users are interested in, what they're engaging with, what they're gravitating towards, that's where we really kind of focus our retention and our engagement efforts. I think that there's, at different points along the path, we're seeing either a fallout, at a certain place, or looking at what is actually stopping them from doing what we would love for them to do, which is see more theater. And we will have accomplished our goal if the people that see theater see more and the people that don't see theater think about seeing theater. Because by and large, whenever I ask someone that question, regardless of what city I'm in, there are two answers about why they don't see theater more often. Is number one, it's expensive and they feel like they have to plan ahead. And number two, they just don't really know what's playing. Seattle has an incredible theater community. I didn't really know that ever until we started doing research here and talking to theaters here about launching. So it's also then about kind of segmenting that audience and showing them things that they might like. Someone at a theater here in Seattle made me laugh the other day. They said, people talk about theater people and that they're just not a theater person, but you never hear someone say, well, I'm not really a film person, or I'm not really a cable TV person. We all are. We just like different genres of stuff. And so how do we segment really smart and deliver someone some content that they actually might be really interested in because we've seen them engage with other stuff, versus just theater full stop, because it's as crazy as just saying TV full stop.
In our world, it's the content that drives usage. And, we see that as we have new shows and different shows, we see different segments that start to use the app or come in and come out of use. I mean, we're 4 months in, so it's early still, but the idea that we have is that a segment will come in based on a show, and once that show is over, what we want to do is show them that we have also library content, so older movies, older shows, different things that they could be interested in, and we want them to engage with that content and still see the value of everything that we have. And hopefully there will be smaller segments that will continue using the app based on the other shows that we have throughout the year.
Right, so segments, that's a really interesting concept all on its own, is the idea of who to reach out to or how you identify the people who are most likely to engage, the theater people per se, although ideally we all enjoy, stories, obviously. Yeah. So the idea of a theater person is kind of a strange concept, although everyone subscribes to it. But when it comes to identifying, how do you actually finding those people who are within those segments who are likely to be the people most likely to engage, become your best users? How do you find them right now? What are your different avenues for saying this is someone who's very likely to be someone who loves this app, or potentially someone who's very likely to get other people to use this app as well?
Lookalike audiences is a really easy way of doing it. We've had a lot of success with that. So if we just take, an audience in a given city and then create a lookalike audience when we're going into a new city, that's helpful. I think it's also about thinking about where the people who tend to demonstrate that they like theater hang out, right, and where they congregate. On an ROI basis, one of the best investments we ever made was a sponsorship of a podcast called the Theater People Podcast, which is one of the more popular theater podcasts. But it was just incredible how much their audience, our message resonated. And then we had, a month into this sponsorship, some users that had bought tickets 4 times on the app, which is just incredible. And so I think it's about thinking about where they might hang out in non-traditional or in traditional media, right? Like not just that hardcore, UA-driven strategy, but then when we have the ability to segment, it's looking at who are our avids, who are the people who are, going 4 or 5 times a year, building lookalike audiences off of them, or when we have a completely new segment like improv audiences in Chicago, which is not something that New York or London really prepared us to market to. It's about working with some of our theater partners and trying to figure out how we can build audiences based on the knowledge that they have. So kind of starting from that square one and then just replicating when we find a group of people that seem to engage.
So our approach, we have a very robust research department, and they helped us with identifying segments as we started marketing that just have a higher propensity to engage with streaming services. And within those segments, then we went down and we created lookalike models based on those segments, and that was kind of where we started. And as the campaign kind of goes on, we continually modify the creative. We understand what's performing, what's not. Do we need to pause a segment based on the content that we currently have? Do we need to put more behind this other segment that seems to be performing well based on new creative that we introduced? So it's something that we continually change and modify and make sure that we're just running the most efficient campaign that we can.
And just one more note on that, I think one of the things that we found interesting when we were doing just that, trying to look at users and segment which ones are giving indicators that they're going to be really engaged, was people in the onboarding process. So really measuring, who are those users that immediately register, or who are those users that immediately go in and look at 3 shows and then back out? And is that an actual indicator that those are going to be the hardcores or the avids, even if they've never made their first purchase? Are there indicators and things that we can see right at the beginning of their engagement with us that help, help us figure out that they're going to be a certain type of customer, which is really interesting and not something that we did until the past 6 months or so.
So you brought up a magic word there, onboarding, which is a really interesting concept. So in terms of maximizing that onboarding flow, to try to drive as many people in as possible, what are some of the techniques that are available? What have you tried? How much is that an essential part of successfully getting people to use the app at all?
It's kind of a combination of an email strategy, a push strategy, and getting all of the best features that we have in front of them. We were really nervous about pushing people in the beginning. And of course, the idea of losing the ability to push someone, having them turn off push because they're irritated by a push, was enough for us to kind of shy away from that. But what we've been finding is actually that, especially within the first couple of days, as long as we're pushing about things like, hey, did you know we have a referral program? You could be making good money on passing the word around to your friends and credit towards theater tickets. Do you know about our lottery and rushes? That's something new. And giving them kind of interesting content in both an email and push strategy at targeted times. So we might send an email, the day after they install the app with some additional stuff to try to encourage them to register if they haven't, or if they've already registered for the app, then what do we send them next there? So we're always tweaking it. My head of retention is really looking at doing a lot of testing, especially in our bigger, more established markets with holdout groups, to really see, like, surprisingly sometimes, sending an email versus not sending an email has 0 impact, which is really interesting. And so it's really just kind of testing and iterating there all the time.
I mean, onboarding for us is really just gaining a new sub, right? It's, I think it's, I thought it was funny too. I think it's mainly, we have a heavy DR campaign, and, we're kind of always on right now, but we also see that as soon as we get other more awareness-driven media in the market, even traditional media, outside of our heavy DR mobile-focused campaign, that everything rises, everything performs better. So it's that idea of just creating that full funnel all the way through. And typically, it's going to be tied to our new shows, but we just see that when we have our heavy DR campaign, then that's when we're really working and optimizing outside of our big campaign windows. And the big campaign windows, when they hit, everything performs so much better, exponentially better.
Got it. So with our last minute here, I'm going to ask the ultimate unfair question, which is I'm going to ask you to see into the future. So whipping out your crystal balls, when it comes to the next 12, 24 months, what's next? What's on the horizon? What's something new that you want to try? What's something that you think is going to change the entire ecosystem?
I think one of the things that being a niche product, right? Something that you might use 5 times a year if we're lucky. For us, it's what happens, 3 or 4 years from now. And we were talking backstage. I mean, I don't think that any of us are going to have like 800 apps on our phone in a couple of years. So what are the futures of apps? What will there kind of be a travel and entertainment category which aggregates? How do we get better about interacting and transacting within other apps? I know that's kind of where we're moving with some of our partners is, hey, how can we kind of share and make our product available within something that might be more like a hotel experience or a concierge experience? So we're really trying to look beyond being an app and to the future of apps and also the future of ultimately a theater company. How do we really get people excited about this age-old art form that in a world of smaller and smaller screens is something really unique and something different, something that opened up at this conference, which was really cool. And I had no idea it was going to happen. So I think, for us, it's how do we maintain an edge in that world? And I think that that's where brand is becoming more and more important. And if you look at a lot of ticketing companies or ticketing apps, there's not a huge focus on brand. It's more about the functionalities, the always leading with the product. And so we've talked about, if take product functionality out of it, what really makes Today Ticks interesting to people and resonate with people? And so spending more time in that and how we'll weather the complete unknown technological evolution of like the way that we're actually getting to people.
For us, I think, we have all of the tracking in place that's needed currently for iOS and Android. But as I mentioned earlier, we also have applications on connected TV devices, smart TVs, gaming consoles, and really it's going to be able to get all of the tracking in all of those places based on all of the applications that we have, and really allow us to make informed decisions on how we continue our campaign, how we move our spend, what's performing well, where are people engaging the highest. And I'd like to see it all in the multiverse. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's give Sarah and Lauren a huge hand. Thank you so much. Terrific panel, and thank you all.
Whoa, the double clap. Awesome. Good job, Dan. Way to go. So we want to look at how customers become customers. We want to look at how users become users. We think we understand that. We think we know that. We think we can map the funnel, the customer journey, the points along that journey that we can influence, and the points that might make them convert in some way, shape, or form. But it's not easy. It's not simple. It's not obvious. So we want to deconstruct it. Here to help us do that is Sandy McPherson from Quib, with experts from Twitter, Shutterfly, and Match Group. Please welcome Sandy and panel.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited today to talk to these 3 people about the mobile marketing funnel. It was really interesting. Yesterday, I ran into a few people who had actually bookmarked this panel and talk about how excited they were to hear from all of you. So, so they're here hopefully today. Made it out? Okay, great. So to get started, it'd be nice to hear just a little bit about each of you, where you are now, and a little bit about your background.
Sounds good. I'll get started, and I apologize for my voice. It was their supporting tune last night. But I'm Raquel, and I just joined Shutterfly in December as their director of mobile marketing. And before that, I was at Electronic Arts running the paid acquisition and engagement team for about 6.5 years. And actually, Nick over here was in my team for a long part of that. So it's great to be up here with you.
Yeah. So I'm Nick Kwan. I'm on the consumer marketing team at Twitter, focused on mobile user acquisition. And like Raquel said, before Twitter, I was at EA on her team doing focus on mobile user acquisition as well. And before that, I was actually at InMobi, so I got a little bit of the publisher side experience as well.
Hi guys, James Pang. I had mobile acquisition for Match Group. For y'all that don't know, Match Group is the collection of the leading dating apps in the world, such as Match, OkCupid, Tinder, Plenty of Fish. All those which are in the top 100 grossing. Before that, I was heading mobile user acquisition at StoreMate, iOS Android developer, and before that, I was working in the finance world.
Okay, thanks. So one thing that I think is really interesting that I also noticed yesterday with the CMO panel is that you all have a games background. So I'd just love to hear a little bit about why it is you think that people from games move into consumer mobile. Also a little bit about why or what you have found has been different or challenging in making that shift.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first again. And it's just great because we've all worked together in the gaming space and now we've all branched out to very different companies. And we were talking about this yesterday, but I think the biggest challenge for me was twofold. First, it was for the first time feeling a little bit out of my own depth, right? You're so used to being an expert in what you do and talking the language and, you know, talking about all these mobile KPIs, and then all of a sudden you're at a web-first company, in my case, more e-commerce, and the language changes and the KPIs change, and you really just have to kind of retrain your brain at the same time as you're really teaching the company on how to be a mobile expert. So that's been really interesting. And I think the reason why a lot of companies are trying to hire folks like us that come from gaming acquisition is because gaming companies really have been at the cutting edge of doing user acquisition and performance marketing. I don't know how it's been for you guys.
Yeah, sure, I'll just go ahead and jump in. So I guess the main reason for me joining games in the first place is, again, as Raquel said, you're going to be on the cutting edge. They're the biggest spenders and kind of the smartest spenders in the space. And I think that's where, you know, I think what you learn in games is how people spend money and like kind of where. So you learn all the channels very thoroughly and kind of all the dimensions of the channels. So like, you know, from social to game and to ad networks to exchanges, like why would you use each, and kind of how do you win on each. But then when you move over to the non-games, it adds a whole degree of complexity, because the question is, who plays casual games? Well, you know, probably you, me, and quite a lot of people do. So it's not that hard to advertise for it. But when you look at more niche apps like let's say a Uber or a Match, we're looking for a very specific type of user. So it becomes incredibly many times more difficult because you're trying to dissect and find that specific user. So now it's not so easy. Not all ad networks just work for you. So I think that's the kind of additional complexity to it. You need to understand your user much more in depth than maybe your traditional games company. So I think that type of background really informs and helps you to think about that next level.
Yeah, I would say echoing both of what Raquel and James said, I would agree with both of that. I feel like the gaming guys really did set the stage and define like how performance marketing should be done on mobile. And my biggest change for when I went from EA to Twitter was actually like a deeper focus on traditional marketing. So again, like really going in with the consumer, understanding your brand, how do you market that brand and reach the right consumer. Those are definitely the big challenges.
Great, yeah, it's really interesting. So let's jump into the mobile funnel. I'd love to hear a little bit about, on your teams, how do you devote time and resources to sort of the three different sections, either discovery, conversion, re-engagement? How does that break down on your teams?
So my role is more like general marketing. We're not spending the dollars. We have a whole separate team that is in media, but we do think about it as more acquisition, consumer facing, like new customer facing, and engagement, which right now is really mainly push and email. So we do think about it in the two big chunks of the funnel. I think going back to your first question, though, in terms of what's been different and merging that with the funnel, is even how the companies look at the funnels, right? So at EA in gaming, we're used to talking about, you know, the first-time user experience and the day two retention, and 99% of our customer or users don't spend a dime. So you really are looking at the whole user pool. When you go to e-commerce, you're really looking at the customer, and you're talking about the customer, and not as much time is being spent on the top of the funnel, like the registrations, and how do you maximize them, and how do you convert them. And so that's both been a learning experience that, you know, it's been a difference in the industries, but also just, you know, a different way to look at the funnels, like really focusing at the top, at the bottom. How do you shift the company to start looking at the top as well and maximize those users? Sure.
Yeah, so I would totally agree with that. The discovery, we actually have a separate brand team who focuses on like the branded campaigns with the branded metrics, so that gets us with the discovery. I would also say that I noticed search campaigns becoming a bigger piece of the pie when I went from gaming to non-gaming, especially at Twitter. And a lot of that data that you can get from the search campaigns really gives you a strong signal of what the user's obviously looking for and what they want to find on Twitter or whatever they're interested in at the time. And yeah, so I would say for discovery, definitely looking at like CTRs would be a key metric that I'm looking at. And
Which we never looked at yet.
yeah, we did care more about like the CPIs.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so when we think about funnel for Match, I'll just focus on Match, Match.com as a brand. At the very top level, just the awareness. I think we have a whole team that spends a lot of money and time on kind of just getting your brand out there, making sure everyone knows what Match.com is, which I think most people in the room do, luckily. So that's the awareness part of the funnel, and then it moves on to my team, which we focus on the acquisition piece, which is after people know what it is. Now let's inform them how to use it and how to kind of get involved and actually become a user. So that's our job, is to put that right message in front of them at the right time. And so we probably spend more time than anything else on the targeting and finding the precise users. So, and that's kind of because of a couple reasons. One, because it's probably the most critical part of it, but two, it's also the most difficult with kind of the current options and the current state of targeting in the app install world. So we definitely over-index there. And then kind of touching on the after the install, getting them to use and re-engage in the app. We probably focus a little less time there, just because we have a pretty robust kind of internal CRM. We rely on our product to kind of re-engage users instead of trying to coax users back in through ads necessarily. When we look at kind of mobile re-engagement, like paid re-engagement, I think a lot of it works well for a lot of e-com, because they're able to find like a specific maybe item that you're looking at and present it in front of you, whereas it works a little bit different for dating.
Sure. So back to this point on finding the right person as being challenging. What is it in terms of tactics that you guys actually employ and think about to try to find those exact right people that you're looking for?
Yeah, so I would say to find the right people, you have to know your audience. Number one, like that is probably the most critical part. You can't find who you don't even know who you're looking for. So number one is, I think the more you know your audience, the better that you can be very targeted in finding them. For example, in Match, we break our audience up into, I would say, as many different kind of permutations as we can by age, by gender, by different characteristics. For example, if they have children, if they have a certain if they live in a certain area, there's so many different dimensions that we collect in Match that allow us to segment our users by different permutations. So we break those up, and then we find the channels that are able to actually target by those parameters. For example, Facebook is one that obviously comes to mind. They know a lot, probably more about the users than a lot of different other ad networks and channels. Twitter also has a lot of targeting options. Google is starting to get there and is definitely becoming much more robust. Again, on the ad network side, I'm going to touch on this because I want to push the ad networks. A lot of them just simply don't know who their users are for the most part. Like even gender and demo targeting is difficult there. And I think it's rapidly improving, but quite challenging. So that's why it's very important to align the right channel, to really utilize the channel to the max in terms of what their targeting capabilities are versus your understanding of your audience. And then the third step is putting the right message there.
Right.
So
So it's dealing with that delta, I guess, between what you know versus what the ad networks are able to provide you with. Do you have any sort of ideas on how people can help manage that?
Yeah, I think I think it depends on your strategy. Our strategy and our goal is to be kind of everywhere we can. If a user is using a phone, I want to be in front of them as much of that 100% of their time as possible. So that involves being on the exchanges and ad networks, even though they're tougher. So, for example, you have to think outside the box when it comes to ad networks. I think outside just publisher targeting. How can you use the data that they have to help them target more? I think a lot of ad networks kind of struggle with pushing the next boundaries of their technology and their targeting. So I think what's helpful is if you think along with them. Hey, what data do you have? Do you have kind of prior install data? Do you have app graphs based on kind of install data? Are you able to listen to ad calls and things like that, and then piece together probabilistic pictures? What can you do to kind of better your picture? I would say we try to use as much data indirectly and directly as we can to sort of maximize our output. And we work very, very closely with each of our top ad networks to really maximize that, because I think it's
Yeah, I was going to say, so I remember in the early days of gaming user acquisition, when Facebook didn't even have really an app install ad product that worked, what we would do, spend a lot of time doing with ad networks, was spending a lot of money and time and buying as much as we could and then dissecting that post-install data. And we wouldn't necessarily know, like, these users are, single females or whatever, but we would be able to see by the post-install data that they were highly engaged and monetizing. And again, we wouldn't know a lot about them, but we would know that this subsite, this creative on this network is working, which, with tools like Facebook, where you can kind of start from the beginning knowing that it's going to more or less work, it's a little bit frustrating, but that's, one way we kind of got around it as well.
Sure. So again, at this stage, this discovery stage, before we move on, what across your companies do you find are the most important KPIs or benchmarks that you look to, or metrics that are top of mind?
So I think, the top of the funnel, definitely you look at installs, the quality of the installs, always installs with ROAS, not just number of installs. But for me, what's been most interesting, having been at EA and being so focused on acquisition, top of the funnel, has been now starting to look more and more at engagement. I know you mentioned that as well. And how to use push notifications to drive users back into the app and whatnot. And we've had a lot of discussions around how do you drive engagement for such a seasonal product, right? Like, people don't buy photo books every day. They could, check their crops or whatever, play games every day, but they're not making photo books and buying prints every day. So how do you drive that engagement? And we know that people are addicted to their phones, so it's a great platform to do that. So to us, it's been really coming down to discussions around what are the right features to build that can drive people to keep coming back to Shutterfly, whether it's inspiration or whether it's to work with their photos, right? So one of the things we're talking a lot about is this functionality we have, which is throwback, which is like rediscovering your memories, similar to Time Hop. Another one is, how do you make it easier for the user or for the consumer to just go about their lives, right? So your birthday's coming up. We want to let you know that your mom's birthday's coming up and you should make a photo book, and just providing those solutions. And then the last piece has been around photo storage as a value add. So we do unlimited free storage, and we've provided a somewhat easy solution to get all the photos off of your phone into somewhere where you can do more with them and consolidate it. And I think that's another way, another feature that can drive more engagement with photos. That's not necessarily bottom of the funnel, like purchase focus, but we believe that that engagement and people coming back to Shutterfly will drive that bottom of the funnel conversion.
And I also just want to jump in about ad networks. So I do want to push ad networks as well to be a lot more transparent with us. I would say that a lot of times ad networks are constantly asking for, well, we're asking for user quality. So they're like, okay, what points, what data can you send me to signify user quality so I can get you user quality? That's great. That's awesome. Totally down for that. But we also want more data from you guys as well, especially for Twitter, because users who are coming into Twitter have this discovery mindset. There's so many interests and topics happening on Twitter that the ad that they click and the publisher that the ad was served on shows a lot of intent of what that user was consuming and what they want to see more of in Twitter, and that's why they click the Twitter ad. And so if I have more data from my ad partners that I could feed into the Twitter product and customize that new user onboarding experience, I think that just leads to a lot more higher engagement for our users as well.
Sure. Yeah, because I think this was something that I also heard on a panel yesterday. I think someone else sort of raised your point around, like, come on, ad networks.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear it again. Hopefully they're listening.
So I think when I think of top of the funnel, there's one thing that only one KPI I really want to spend the most time on, and that's click to install conversion rate. And because the reason I focus on that is because, click-through rate, great, signifies, you got the right creative, it's attractive, but click to install. Why is that so important? Because I think this is the single most highest leverage component of your CPI. Kind of when you're looking let's look at conversion rates for ad networks, exchanges, etc. I would say without the robust targeting that's available, it can range from 0.1% to maybe 5% optimistically especially I'm talking more for non-gaming. Gaming apps may achieve somewhere in the kind of, call it 2 to 10% range. Then let's look at the opposite side of the spectrum, extreme targeting. If you're able to, have a very focused 1% kind of look-alike audience on Facebook, that's, very, very carved out. You may get maybe upwards of a, 40 to 60% click to install conversion rate. And what is that? That's, that factor of whatever it is, like 40, 50, 100x, that is targeting. And that's you knowing the right user and hitting the right user. And so that's a difference. That's that leverage in eCPM, is your ability to pay from a, $1 CPI to a $100 CPI. And that's, knowing the right user and being able to get the right value out of it. So I would say that's the KPI that's most important, that I find most important, that I'm monitoring probably more than anything else, but yet it's one of the simplest ones.
And you guys are both really focused on paid acquisition, right? It sounds like in terms of like your metrics and whatnot. In my new role, I focus a lot also on our owned channels and looking at those KPIs. And you talked about click to install. When you're leveraging your own channels to drive installs and hitting up your existing web customers, those CTIs really get in the high range, and the revenue per install gets really in the high range. So talk about getting really targeted too. It's like leveraging your own channels in conjunction with paid.
So I wanted to touch, Nick, a little bit on your point about the onboarding. It's one of these things that with mobile is a little bit tough sometimes. Some people don't even really have an onboarding flow. In your case, it seems to be really important to how you think about getting users actually into the product and converting them.
Yeah, especially for Twitter, because it's all about the content that they start following, all the accounts they start following. It's really going to make or break their experience on Twitter. And so, for example, if I know a user has clicked a ad that's targeted that has sports ad copy on it, so like, hey, follow your favorite athletes or whatever, then I should definitely be leveraging that data and customizing the user experience so that it's leaning towards sports and it's showing them maybe based off their location, like here in San Francisco, like, hey, here's some 49er players, like follow them, and just giving them the best experience possible up front. We've seen just leads to a lot longer engagement at the tail end.
So are you guys like actually customizing the funnel in the app depending on where they click on the ad, or is that ideal state?
That's the ideal state, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So a little bit on the final piece. So you're all like, this final piece of the funnel. How do you guys think about, one of the things that I think is interesting is, how do you balance new users versus re-engagement? And how do you think about the value of each? How do you think about if you have equal amount of money or time or resources to spend? How do you make that decision and evaluate the outcome of each?
I think when we were talking, you kind of mentioned like if you had $2, would you spend it on a new user or re-engaging? Yeah. And I think what's really interesting, what I've found is that if you spend those $2 in re-engaging a user, it's going to look like a higher ROAS, right? Like you're essentially talking to a very, very qualified audience, somebody who's already bought your product, probably wants to buy it again. So I think the risk there becomes in taking those $2 to be more efficient by just kind of looking at that immediate ROI and not accounting for incrementality, right? So how do you know that that user that you just re-engaged wouldn't have made that purchase without that ad, right? How do you know you're really making them, pushing them over that hump and not just enabling a behavior that was already going to be there?
Because in your case, even it's like maybe you do that campaign, but it's right before Christmas.
Right,
and they were planning on
do it
making
anyways.
a Christmas thing anyway.
So exactly, that's a great example. And so what becomes really hard is measuring that incrementality, right? If in an ideal world, you want to have a holdout group that looks just like the group you're targeting and re-engaging, and seeing if their LTV follows the same trajectory as the group that you are spending to re-engage on, or if there's really incremental lift and value there, and using that to measure. And then I think you can ask the question, spend $2 on a new user or to re-engage. But really, if you're just looking at it typical, like what was the revenue after the re-engagement event, that's always going to look better than buying a net new customer. And then the last thing I think a lot of people forget is that a new customer becomes a customer, right? So you can't look at them as separate. A new customer becomes a customer that's going to get re-engaged. So they have intrinsic value there that hasn't been realized yet that you have to model. So at EA, we did a lot of predictive LTV where we said, okay, you're worth this much now, but we know that you're going to drive this much more value once we re-engage you, and we do push and email and sales and paid engagement ads. So you have to take that into account as well. Otherwise, the new customer may look less profitable in the short term.
Sure, sure. And then James, I think you have an interesting suite of products also where there's this question around re-engaging people when in actuality you maybe want them to not be engaged because they've had a great experience with the product. And I know like with dating products, it's always really interesting to talk to people about how they think about that problem. Yeah. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, so to kind of rephrase your question, I think it's around like churn, the fact that if your product is too good, then you lose a user, right? Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, but I think we want to build the best products, and we want to help you find the right kind of the right person, the right relationship, or whatever experience it is. I think that it's kind of self-fulfilling, and I think the good thing is the trends overall are in our favor. The kind of trends around marriages, relationships, people being less, monogamous, and just I think overall, it's if we build the right product. The thing about Match Group is we have products for people in all stages of life. So kind of whether you're a little younger, middle aged, a little older, whatever it is that you're seeking, we've got the right product for you. And so inevitably people cycle through dating. I know I'm sure a lot of you in this room have gone through that cycle in the past year alone. So find yourself back on the dating market. So if you'll probably find yourself coming back to our products at one time or another, even if you've monetized at one point in time. So we just have to play that cycle and know that kind of the right users may not be the right users at a certain point in time, but find them again at the right point in time. That's why not just finding the right user, but putting the right creative and finding the right moment to tackle them is a really important approach. And so that's why, having intent-based kind of lookalikes is even more important than just a user profile. So I think there's, beyond that, kind of third dimension of a user, I think there's a fourth dimension that we need to constantly think about. And that's one thing I would love for, again, the ad tech space and targeting to become so advanced that we can target that fourth intent dimension very easily.
Yeah, it's interesting. So wrapping things up a little bit, I'm curious to hear a little bit about how you guys think about your overall mobile marketing funnel and how okay, I'm going to go in and tweak some copy, change some creative versus whiteboard, whole new thing, completely change the strategy. And what sort of drives that type of decision, and how do you evaluate that?
I mean, I think the right answer is, before what you're doing stops working, you're already working on the next,
ideally,
on the future. In reality, a lot of times it's, when you have this kick-ass campaign that's working, and then all of a sudden you start seeing it not work anymore, and you're like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Let's fix it. So I think the right answer is you're always iterating and working on something new, and because you know that it's going to get stale, and what works today is not going to work tomorrow. So it's kind of a non-answer, but I think, the ideal is you should always stay on top of it. And then I think too, just in terms of the little iterations and the daily iterations you mentioned, you can't get comfortable there, right? Like you have to keep going, because one day you're going to wake up and you're going to find your Facebook campaign overspent $100K, and you're like, what happened? My CPIs went up to $10 and they didn't even catch it. So you really have to stay on top of it in real time.
Yeah, I would say like a lot of testing new different creative copy, new publishers and new ad networks. That was a big change for me from going from gaming to non-gaming, because then my publisher mix changed dramatically, right? Because in gaming, you could find the gamers in games. But with non-gaming or with Twitter, there's a lot of non-gaming inventory out there that works really, really well too. So, I did have to change up my strategy a little bit, because what I knew was gaming, and then I had to adjust to non-gaming and adjust to the customer base that I was trying to find for Twitter.
Yeah, so for us, it's always about having having very customized creative towards the audience. But again, I'll keep it high level and simple. Testing, iterating is definitely, the right approach. However, we always I would like to throw an element of kind of randomness and just some fresh ideas in there.
It's always hard, right? How do you stay on top of the day-to-day testing iteration, but also open it up for your team to innovate and try new things?
Yeah, so final question on new things. Quick 10, 20 seconds on what you're most excited about with respect to mobile marketing.
For me, because I come from a very web-focused company, it's going to be this interplay between mobile, web, and apps. Okay. We've talked a lot about instant apps and everything like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's mobile web inventory and just how the tracking and how targeting will progress there. is super interesting to me as well, just because a lot of times the mobile web inventory have these verticals and have these audience bases that these app guys just don't have. So, for example, TMZ.com is very accustomed to people who are social connectors and looking for celebrity news, but that doesn't really exist anywhere else in the app ecosystem.
For me, I think it's just the advent of kind of targeting and the evolution across the mobile ecosystem. I think ad networks are going to have to fight to retain their inventory because you have things like Audience Network and Twitter Audience Platform that is really just increasing the targeting across the spectrum and offering up their data to increase your eCPMs. And so I think that publishers are going to have to, the ad networks are going to have to fight to keep that inventory unless they evolve. And because you have advertisers like us who are becoming incredibly smart about their targeting, and we're able to pay multiples of what games advertisers are about, to get the same users. So, it's about unlocking that eCPM. I think with additional data and being able to enrich impressions and stop wasting impressions when you advertise. When that happens, it's going to be a whole kind of change in the ecosystem, and publishers are going to get paid more. We're going to, overall ad revenues are going to increase, and I think it's going to be mutually beneficial for everyone in the space.
Great, fantastic. Okay, well, James, Nick, Raquel, thanks so much for your time. It was great chatting. Thanks everyone.
Thanks so much, panel. Thanks so much, Sandy. That was great. So many of us here are mobile only. And that's great, but shockingly, there's a whole other world out there. In fact, a lot of mobile apps, when they're marketing and advertising, they're forced to go beyond mobile marketing because they've outgrown their mobile marketing niches. To help us understand some of that and understand a different way of approaching mobile marketing, please welcome James Connolly, co-founder and CEO of Fetch. Come on out, James.
Morning, everybody. How are we? Very quiet by the sound of things. Hungover. Good. Me too. No, I was very sensible last night. I'm very excited to be here, not least because I get to share some time with some great people, but also this is my first post-bac. So Peter reminded me yesterday he's taking my post-bac virginity, which seemed a bit weird, but nonetheless, I'm very, very glad to be here. I've flown 10,000 miles to do a 15-minute talk, so I should really hurry up because I've got 14 minutes left. And I'm here to talk to you about mobile first, not mobile only. I recognise quite a few people at this event, but if you haven't met me, I run Fetch. I launched it 7 years ago. And 7 years ago, it was reasonably straightforward for me to sound like the smartest mobile marketer in the room. And that was because I was the only mobile marketer in the room 7 years ago. And so when I started thinking about doing this talk, I thought, it's going to be a bit more difficult standing in front of hundreds of the greatest minds in mobile and trying to sound smart. And then I thought about talking about singularity, and I quickly scratched it off the list too. But it really made me think, mobile's moved on quite a bit in 7 years. It's moved on quite a bit in 2 years. And we're all in an industry now that I think has... we talked yesterday, Peter mentioned the year of mobile. I try not to say those words, but we are in that tipping point in mobile where it's not the smaller brother of marketing. It's not the marketing channel which is exclusive for mobile first or mobile only businesses. It's now being really well respected, and people in this room have been part of that growth, which is really exciting. But I sort of asked myself, why is that? And yes, we've talked a little bit about mobile marketing being reasonably frictionless. That's true. Yes, we talk about accountability. Companies like Tune have allowed us to measure, the performance of mobile. But the reality is, mobile has arrived because we've reached scale. We've reached scale because consumers, all of us and the rest of the world, are using their mobile more than ever before. And so I like to think of the world now of being slightly different. Life has changed. The way that we live our life is slightly different to how it was 5 years ago and incredibly different to 10 years ago, and that's through the power of mobile technology. Jay Wise this morning was talking about us as consumers being demanding. We are a lot more demanding. We are, from a mobile perspective at least, we're optimizing our life through mobile. We want things now. So life has changed. Everything has changed. If you think about the way you consume your news, if you think about the way you watch TV, or at least consume TV content or films, if you think about the way that you talk to your family and your friends, everything's just that little bit different. My WhatsApp, I've had to turn the notifications off on WhatsApp because I'm constantly getting messages and pictures from my mum on her latest vacation. That's just a little bit different to what it was 5 years ago. If you think about the way you listen to music, the way you travel, not just take cars, thank God we don't have to talk to strangers in bars anymore. You've got Tinder, you've got Happen, you've got all these other wonderful dating apps Micah Gantman keeps telling me about. So the world's changed. And the stat that we've been using for a while is that we look at our phone 144 times a day. I think it was mentioned this morning that it might be 200 times. That's quite a lot, right? It's quite a lot to be looking down at your phone 144 times a day. And I'm preaching to the converted here, of course. But when you think about these 144 moments, how many of those moments are commercial message opportunities? We're all marketers. We're all here to sell our products, to drive app installs, to sell more hotel rooms or more car rides or whatever it might be. And we need to advertise to new customers or existing customers to drive a benefit to our business. So you need commercial message opportunities. You need to advertise. And when you think about mobile behavior, these 144 moments, how many of those allow for commercial message opportunities? Well, it's a really personal device. We're checking bank balances, we're sending emails, we're taking photos. As advertisers, we realize that we can't advertise, we can't get a commercial message opportunity in those environments. And as consumers, we're very happy about that. Traditional marketers, even back to the Mad Men era, will always talk about 3,000 commercial message opportunities in any given day. So from the moment you wake up in the morning through to the moment you go to bed at night, there are arguably, give or take, about 3,000 opportunities to get a commercial message in front of somebody. So if you weigh that up to 144 mobile moments versus 3,000 real moments, I think we need to ask ourselves as an industry, certainly from the advertiser's perspective, are we leaving a lot of opportunity on the table if we're focusing purely on mobile marketing for mobile-first businesses? Please don't ask me what's second, because that's been asked to me a few times, and that does throw me, that question. But mobile-first has lots of different interpretations. From a Fetch perspective, we've been on an evolution from a mobile-only agency to a mobile-first agency. And that, for us, is taking the limitations away from mobile to help our mobile-first customers market themselves in an integrated fashion. So what does mobile-first look like from a marketing perspective? An onion. That's what it looks like to me. It's a way of looking at paid, owned, and earned media in a controlled fashion, and you start with what you can control most, which is your product, your app. Most of the advertisers in the room and at this event have some sort of application. You then look at CRM, App Store presence, ASO, SEO. You look at your social media channels, so you're going through these owned environments which you can control. They're relatively cost efficient. You then look at PR, ratings, reviews, and then you get to that point where you go, we really need to start advertising now. So we look at app advertising, or we call it mobile advertising. This is where we start looking at paid social. We start looking at programmatic. We start working with all the partners we've got in this room, from ad networks through to whatever it might be from a mobile advertising perspective. But then you need to start tapping into the 3,000 moments, right? Then you need to start thinking about out of home, TV, and so on. And so we enter the world of traditional media. And I'm sure most of you coming to a mobile marketing event are wondering why you're listening to somebody talk about traditional media. And the thing with traditional media is if you approach it in a traditional way, you're going to have a real challenge. And we learnt this at Fetch because, I'm going to be honest with you, the consumer's moved a lot in the last 7 years, but traditional media really hasn't. It's quite archaic. And a typical planning model is you take 100% of a budget, you split it into 70-20-10. 70% goes into what typically works more often than not, TV, 20% goes into digital, 10% goes into innovation. It's really hard to measure, it's expensive, it's fraught with challenges to make it work for mobile-first companies. So we've been on a journey to figure out if we can disrupt the way that you buy traditional media so that it backs out for growth marketing for mobile marketers. And the good news is it does. But you need to have a really different approach. And the first thing is, you need to have a data-first approach to traditional media, right? So if you look at, if you go to a traditional agency or whoever would buy your media campaign, they typically go data last. So they'll do a bit of insight to when they plan your campaign. They'll then book it and traffic the campaign. And then you'll get a summary report at the end, which tells you how well your campaign did or didn't do. And that's a really data-last approach. What we found is you need to have data from the very moment you start planning your campaign. You need to have mobile consumer data in any given location. So Fetch is our own proprietary Fetch Me platform where we can get that data from, but there's other tools in the market which can help you with that. We have a notion of thinking about everyone, not everyone. So it's thinking about what partners with traditional formats can I trade first-party data with, use IDs so that I can target individuals with certain messaging, with certain targeting, as opposed to having a really carte blanche broadcast approach. And then you really need to dig into the data of the audience. People are talking about TV being the biggest, growing more than ever. It's having its highest viewership of all time. But when you dig underneath the hood, actually, yeah, we are watching the big TV screen in our room, but in our living room, but the growth is coming from on demand. Traditional broadcast TV is actually in decline. So it's really understanding the nuances of where traditional media is today and looking at it from a different perspective, a data-first perspective. We need to minimize risk. As growth marketers, we want to see return on ad spend. And for traditional marketing, we're in an industry where upfronts are a big thing. You have to bid for months ahead or even for a whole year and commit to a certain amount of advertising for TV or out of home, whatever it might be. When you create TV commercials, people want to do big cinematographic, amazing ads. And they're $1 million plus, 5 million sometimes. So that doesn't work, particularly when you're putting your toe in the water and learning how to use all these new platforms to drive new users or better value from your users. So firstly, it doesn't cost $1 million to create a piece of video content. We know that. There's much more affordable ways of shooting various commercials of different lengths. You can then variant test that and understand what you're going to invest into to then put it onto larger platforms. And you need to really think and work with these new suppliers or traditional suppliers to change the way that you trade. Upfronts don't work, so you have to build in cancel orders. We are part of Dentsu Aegis Network. They're the third largest buyer of any advertising in the world. So we have a little bit of leverage there where we can do that. But traditional media companies are looking for new customers, and they are willing to have open conversations about new trading models. Measurement. Everybody says, well, you can't measure traditional media. You don't have a silver bullet like you do in other platforms, but there are ways of making it work. So if you think about TV, you can spot match. You need to work with guys like Tune to get the right raw log level data from you, from the platform, sorry. You've got time and date stamps you can use to look at actually what individual TV spot is working. If you're running out of home, you can look at lat longs and figure out, okay, what site is driving the most installs. So there are certain models you can start working with to really get a live interpretation of how your campaigns are working. And that's really important because without that, you can't optimize. And we all know that if we don't optimize our marketing, it just doesn't work. I mean, mobile's difficult because you've got to continuously optimize, and that's when you get your goal. But when you start looking at these TV spots and you're tweaking them, when you start figuring out what bus shelters or big sick sheets are working from an out-of-home perspective, or what radio ads are working, and you start tweaking them, then you start to see some really interesting cross-platform results. And there's a reason why you're seeing Supercell, Machine Zone, these types of businesses move into this platform, because the results are quite compelling if you get it right and if you can measure and optimize. So, the old world of advertising and the new world, us, I think would be fair to say, of advertising, are coming together and colliding a bit. And so I think it's a really interesting period in marketing generally, because we can take what we've learned, the rigor, the measurement, the data-led focus of marketing our businesses, and apply that to the old world where, is the real world. It's the 3,000 moments out there. So I think it's a really interesting time. I'm not suggesting that everybody in the room go off and spend all their money on TV, because I don't think that's good for anybody in this room. But it's definitely worth thinking about. There is an opportunity to grow. People are talking about the app economy slowing. There's definitely more demand for inventory. And so I think we need to start looking up at the opportunity of real-world advertising and taking a leap of faith. Thanks very much.
Thank you, James. That was amazing. I think that's one of those ones that we're going to want to watch again on the recording. Quick question for everybody here. Who has a MarTech stack? See a few hands up there. Who has a MarTech blob? Quite common, actually. In former life, in a company, we had a MarTech blob. Different company, obviously. It's challenging right now to have a MarTech stack that makes sense, that fits, that works, that's closely integrated, that's tightly knit together. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about influencer marketing. To talk us through both those topics, Daniel Murphy, who's the editorial director at Mobile Marketing Magazine, and Kevin Jonas, who's the co-CEO of the Blue Market. Jonas, David, come on out.
All right.
Cheers, sir. Oh, sorry.
Hello.
Hello, Seattle. So thank you very much for that intro, John. And thank you to Tune for this opportunity. Beautiful city, which I've never been to before, but hopefully we'll be back next year. So I'm David Murphy, co-founder of Mobile Marketing Magazine. I'm here with Kevin Jonas. Kevin, co-CEO of the Blue Market. As I'm sure some of you, probably most of you in the room, will realise, Kevin, back in the day, was one of the Jonas brothers and still is. So let's have a big,
thanks.
Big hand for that.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, your brothers decided to stick with music after the Jonas Brothers ceased to be a thing.
Yeah, forget that.
You've gone down a very different track with the Blue Market.
Absolutely.
So, to kick us off, why don't you just tell people what that is and what it does?
Absolutely. So after the band essentially imploded, we decided to all go our different ways and do different things, and I really had a passion for creating amazing content, influencer-driven capacity. Met my co-founder, Stephen Forkosh. We ended up building out this thing called the Blue Market, which is fully trackable, performance-based influencer marketing, which is amazing because there's a lot of garbage out there in the influencer space, and everyone's like, why are you better than this company or this company? And it's like, if we really pay attention to learn from that data and understand it, like, it's been really good for us and our clients, and obviously with as many apps out there with these guys, being able to really track all of that, it's been really great.
Good stuff. So I just want to read the session description just so we keep on track. Connecting and influencing through marketing technology. To connect and influence your audience, marketers and brands have had to embrace technology in order to stay relevant. So I guess my first question would be, hasn't it always been thus? You know, once upon a time, radio was a new thing.
Right.
Once upon a time, TV was a new thing. Once upon a time, the web was a new thing. And then it was mobile. And then it was social. So has anything really changed? Brands have always had to keep up, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what was interesting, like with the influencer space, it transitioned in the same capacity, right? So originally the studios owned the talent. They made the movies, they hired who they want, they were on salary, and that was just it. Then it moved to where the world of media kind of owned the celebrities, right? They took all the paparazzi shots, now they were publishing, and then went from there. Then instantly rolled over to where the mobile age is happening, and everybody has their own essential broadcast network. I'd say that 10% of our audience that we have on access to every single day through our network is larger than 3 to 4 of the largest networks in cable television combined. You know, so like that being the case, it's an amazing thing to how much real incredible media you can create and have it distributed in an organic and native fashion.
And if you look at what you've done with the Blue Market, these influencers, you know, in marketing terms, as being a group of people that brands could do something with and usefully use, they didn't really exist 2 years ago, did they? So,
Yeah,
where did it come from?
I think it was funny because I actually go back to a story where we were in London, and a girl said, "Follow me on Twitter," and we weren't on Twitter yet, and we were still like kicking ass on MySpace, and that was our thing. We actually didn't have how many MySpace people? We didn't have favor at the time from radio, from our label. We really kind of were at the time still just kind of on the bubble. Maybe something will happen, maybe not. And we really learned that one-to-one connection through this interesting thing called social, we could really grow it. So to answer your question, like it wasn't here a couple of years ago. Yeah, but it's always been there in different capacities. But this has really just amplified the ability to have everyone feel like they are truly connected to someone in their everyday life.
And I think the last figure I saw for the Blue Market was 9,000 influencers with a reach of 300 million people.
Yeah.
How dynamic is that? I imagine, you know, people rise and fall in popularity by the day, by the hour?
By the second, really, right? No, it's an incredible thing, right? With all these different, you know, publishers, with these different, you know, bloggers, with these influencers, we've really taken a real big approach to help them cultivate their pages, really make them, empower them, really try to make them, allow them to feel like they can do what they need to do to be special. Influencers are really, you know, completely neutral. They can go work with anyone ever, unless you have some kind of lockdown, you know, like deal with them. But 9 times out of 10, like they're just going from deal to deal, getting called when they're getting called. So it's really interesting to build a place and a platform that people can come to and it's completely open form, right? You know, you're going to come, you're going to be able to help you monetize your page in a real interesting way.
And do they make life-changing sums of money, some of the people you're working with?
Some of them do, yeah. It's insane. We've had, you know, the influencer space is a great one because you have people that are really willing to push their page and really, you know, right? Then you have others that are extremely cautious about their brand. And they should be, because brands are cautious about their brand. You have to be. That was the one thing that we learned as, you know, the Jonas Brothers back in the day was how often do you have to say yes versus how often do you have to say no? And you really have to start to own and truly understand your own personal value in social, because your audience, if you do have an influence, and everybody in this room has probably 100 to 200 to maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, that they can talk to on a daily basis, and they're an influencer in their own right. And so when you do that and actually have the ability to move the needle in their life towards something that you care about, you're going to be way more effective. But if it's super aggressive and it's just like, do this because you know I'm getting paid, like that can work. It can translate to conversions. It can translate to a story. It can do other things. But 9 times out of 10, it needs to be built into an organic fashion.
Okay. And just again, coming back to technology, one of the speakers this morning was talking about the average marketer, the average company's got 20 pieces of tech, in some cases 100, and the average marketer's got to use 5 pieces of tech a day. When you look at the sort of MarTech, Lumascape, I think it's on 3,500 companies, do you sympathize with brands who are trying to make sense of it and trying to keep up, and how do you keep up?
Oh, absolutely, right? We keep track of it on our side, and we actually built our entire platform through Has Offers and Tune, so, you know, that's not even a plug, it really is the truth. Like, we track everything, right? We track from click to conversion to impression basis via social, and we can track it all, we can see it all, we can bill it all, we can do it all, and that's really unique. But then we also use, you know, third-party data for, you know, insights into social, where the graphs are, how is it responding, and without data, you can throw a lot of money at an influencer and get a post, but what's really your ROI, right? Like, and I'm absolutely, you know, I fall, you know, prey to that as well. Hey, there's this company, they will pay you X to take a picture and put it on Instagram. You see a number next to it that you can't say no to, it's very hard to just be like, okay. And then you say, okay, what's the creative? And they give you this rundown of like what it is, and it just doesn't fly. So that's why the data is important. Know where your fall off is in your audience. It's about retention, right? So even when our games and a bunch of things we work with our clients, it's, all right, so if I post at this hour, how much of an hourly retention will I have for the next 6 before I need to have another post go out that matters? But how many likes does it translate to growth of that to actually get onto the trending search into the App Store? Like, those are the things that matter to us, and that's the data we're tracking.
You and I actually share a lot of similarities. I'm often turning down promotional opportunities like that as well for life-changing sums of money. And,
I actually had to pay him a lot of money to be here tonight.
Beyond Tune and Has offers, what other tech is there out there at the moment that gets you excited?
The other tech that's out there, obviously, the buzzword recently is like Pokemon Go, right? It is a unique thing. It's cool to see some new life. Other tech that's out there, there's a lot. I'm not a huge fan of VR, but the AR thing I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's actually some other really big emerging platforms that I'm a fan of as well, though.
Go on, give us an emerging platform.
Emerging platform. So we actually made a strategic investment in it, but so I can say it. But there's an app. There's a social play that's called We Heart It, and they are an incredible app, a huge curator of inspirations for typically the female audience. And we started to realize that we need to diversify where the traffic's coming from. It's not all just going to be the main socials, right? Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. And so those things are great, but there's so many other places that are bubbling that there's something really big there, and that's one of them. So we made an investment and really took a big dive into it.
Okay, and when you look in the here and now, you look at the Gaffer Gang, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon. They look unassailable, but you look at Microsoft 20 years ago and it looked unassailable. So should these guys, I'm sure they're not complacent, but should they be looking over their shoulder, and what sort of things should they be nervous about, or at least thinking of?
Absolutely. Anytime a product can come out and completely change the ecosystem of the App Store when everyone thought it was dead, right? And then like Pokemon Go can go and change everything. Now everyone's like, oh, this is the world we need to be in. Okay, maybe not, right? Like this is maybe a one-off, maybe it's not. Maybe it's going to be the new future of gaming. But at the end of the day, where is the value for these companies to continue to grow and continue? Like there's always going to be a new phone. There's always going to be new people. Everyone's like, oh, well, the market's going to be capped. It's like, yeah, but there's going to be a 13-year-old girl that's going to get a cell phone for her birthday. I say 13 because I'm not going to let my daughter have one until she's 13. No, I'm just kidding. But like a 13-year-old girl that's going to get a phone for the first time, what is going to be the first app that she has to download, right? My goal is to make sure that whatever app I'm working with is that app. That is powerful enough that it can drive those conversions. And I think you have to look at the market that there's always a new point of entry for everybody. And typically with marketing and other things, the single point of sale, the first time of sale, you'll have a person stay with you, whether that's a bank, whether that's your hair care products. It's like that's what will happen. So I truly do believe that's the same feel in social and in mobile.
Okay, so I guess most people in the room, you've sat through 2 days of very interesting, very presentations. We've touched on things like augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. We haven't touched on so much, but delivery drones. Ray Kurzweil yesterday talking about synthesizing your brain with the cloud. This sort of stuff, I think, to us in the room is very exciting. But do you have any sympathy with people who say, "This is scary shit. This is not the world I was born into. I don't actually like all this where it's going."
Right. I go back to my 2.5-year-old daughter that can now use and FaceTime me without ever really being taught how to do it, right? Like the things she's going to be able to do when she's 30 on a mobile device is beyond my understanding at this moment. But at the same time, it's an exciting play, but it's extremely scary. I think there's a whole protection of your own personal data that is going to have to really be cautious about, right? And we've talked a lot about it, protecting that data, the resale of it, those things. But understanding what your data is worth as a person, I think will also be something that you have to really pay attention to.
Yeah, in a panel yesterday, I mentioned a guy that tried to do exactly that. He tried to create a platform to allow people to sell their own personal data. He was going to take them off everybody's mailing list, and then when you're in the market for a car, you would tell this company that you were interested in Chryslers or Chevys, and then they would sell that data and you would make money out of it. And it never got off the ground, probably because it was too cumbersome, and maybe the computing power is there now to make that work.
Maybe for sure, but it's a little invasive on a personal sense because it feels like you're kind of selling yourself, right?
Yeah.
But that's what
So
Facebook is.
We've got 1 minute left, and so we've been talking a lot about apps and downloads and retention and loyalty. So give me the app that's on your phone that you would never uninstall because it's so useful to you.
I'm now kind of living and breathing by Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
It's becoming a thing. I believe that's going to be the future pretty much of all stuff in the next, it's already there, but like in the next 2 years, like it's going to truly be the platform.
Okay.
I think you're going to do everything, including your Facebook feed will all be living in there as well.
Okay, so just in the final 30 seconds, I just wanted to share something with you as I was sort of doing my prep for this session. I didn't know a lot about Kevin's previous life. I only realized who you were two days ago.
He's lying. He was at every show.
That's right. Well, my kids were. But while I was doing my homework, I discovered that when the band were a thing, they were giving away 10% of their earnings to a charity called Change for the Children, which must amount to more than $1 million based on one of the figures I saw, probably 7 million.
Yeah.
And that Kevin's also done some great work with Do Something to raise awareness of teenage homelessness. So I think tremendous stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, could we big it up for Kevin, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was nice. Thanks, everybody.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
David, we had this discussion.
Yes, we did.
So,
I thought he was Daniel Murphy at first. I had him confused with the second baseman of the Washington Nationals, you know, a former Mets player. Looks the same, doesn't he? Talks the same, sounds the same. It's all good. It's all good. Excellent. Yeah, if you're into influencer marketing, I saw that this particular Jonas brother, Kevin, has 5.1 million Twitter followers, so he's a pretty good influencer himself. Excellent. We had a Google exec here yesterday talking about instant apps. We had Button on stage here on a panel today talking about app integration. What's the future? Is it web? Is it app? Is it some mixture of the two, WAP or something like that? Only those of us who were in the mobile industry about 15 years ago will get that joke, but that's okay. Doug Zanger from the Drub is here to talk through that with some extras from Tune. Ian's going to be up again, Wells Fargo, and New York Times. Please welcome Doug and the panel.
That was our walkout music? I like it. Hi. You're allowed to say hi back. Last session. Last day. First off, I think we owe Peter and Toon and the entire team a great round of applause. This is truly an amazing event. So wanted to thank them for that. Absolutely. My name is Doug Zanger. I am the North America editor-at-large for The Drum, a publication that has a heritage in Glasgow, Scotland. And we have been around since 1984. I am based in the town below us, the one you like to pat on the top of its head, Portland, Oregon. Oh, hey, no one's booing. Good. Thank goodness. But I'm super happy to be here and happy to represent The Drum. We do believe very firmly that marketing can change the world, and this topic today is very germane to the idea that we can make great change together. I'd like to just start by letting you guys introduce yourselves, because I would do a woeful job of introducing you. So please, let's start here and introduce yourself and tell us why you're excited to be here too.
Sure. So Scott Stanchak, I'm the managing director of mobile marketing strategy, beta, and off-platform for the New York Times. These really are the three key areas for the company right now. Mobile is where about 3 in 5 people are just consuming our content on a regular basis. Beta is our cooking product, our crossword product, kind of these funnel niche feeders into what the core news product is. And then off-platform is really this interesting area of the company where our content's being distributed on Apple News, Facebook Instant, Apple News, and figuring out ways to how to monetize that and get that audience back to our own platform. Previous to the New York Times, I led mobile marketing and product strategy for Avis Budget Group. So between car rentals and newspapers, I've worked in some pretty challenging industries.
Yeah, no doubt. Ian.
Yeah, so I'm Ian Sepperman, General Manager of Tune Marketing Console here at Tune. So I'm in charge of our attribution analytics product, our in-app marketing product, our App Store analytics, and our business intelligence product. I came to Tune via the acquisition of Mobile Dev HQ, where I started that company working on App Store optimization. And prior to that, spent some time working in some of the marketing technology work that Amazon does as an engineer.
Hi, I'm Ashir Shroff. I am in charge of mobile and app strategy for Wells Fargo. For the folks that don't know, Wells Fargo is one of the leading banks in the U.S. We've got about 18 million customers on our mobile website and applications. Top 100 app in both app stores, and actually I found out we're top 10 in the Windows App Store. No one else probably launched a Windows app, but that claim to fame this week.
We have a Windows product as well.
Oh, you do? Yeah. Did we beat you this week?
Probably.
Oh, geez.
We just launched
We're
it
all
last week,
friends
so.
up here. Let's start with this, because there's so much spiraling around right now, and there's a lot of clutter, there's a lot of noise. What are a couple of things that are most important to know right now? And sort of the lens I want you to look through is what you're finding in your day-to-day that you think is important for people to know about the space. So, Ashir, I'd like to start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, so, again, I've been in the industry for roughly about 10 years actually more than that, focused on mobile. I think, one of the things that I see constantly is there's a lot of change happening. And so as I look at it, being dynamic and being able to meet the customer's needs, whether it's on mobile or it's in Messenger or it's, wherever they may be, is a very big thing. And then also understanding the customer landscape and how they want to interact, what they want to do, simplifying their life. I mean, again, I think there was some great conversation this morning from the FORRESTER individual, I think Jennifer. She was talking about mobile moments. Really, that's what it is. It's about solving needs really quickly for customers so that they don't have to spend their whole time focusing on those things.
Right. And you talk about acquisition, and you also have existing customers, so that's sort of a unique thing for especially for banking, especially for Wells Fargo.
Yeah, I mean, so again, today we grow our audience mostly through converting existing customers, moving them from digital to mobile. And again, I think what we really think is interesting is just, there's so much opportunity to continue to grow the base, and we're just looking at how do we meet those customer needs to fit them with the right solution, and whether it's through an app or whether it's through its mobile website. I think that you're drawing on some of the things that I brought up earlier, right? So most of what's really interesting for us is the mobile app actually serves for existing customers very well, but the mobile web for us has actually been the place where 80% of our traffic comes from prospects that, and that's where they're coming through. They're coming through third-party search engines, coming to us, and how do we leverage that, and how do we turn them into customers, and then get them to download the app.
Yeah. Ian and Scott, you both have strong opinions on both universal links and instant apps. We'll start with Scott.
Yeah.
He's from New York. He's our guest, Ian.
New Yorkers always have strong opinions.
Okay, fair point. All right, so talk a little bit about your point of view on that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talked about this, the volume that's coming through on mobile web. I think the convergence of mobile web and apps, we're starting to see it a lot more predominant in the actual industry. You have deep linking, which is becoming easier to do, universal linking, which is converging, clicking on a link and taking you directly into the app, taking you to a specific page. We're seeing instant apps where portions of apps are being downloaded and you can actually interact with them through that technology. And even attribution, which is what Tune is doing. App attribution used to be so difficult. And so I think we're getting to a place now where mobile web, and eventually I think we'll see this across the board, where mobile is just digital, mobile and web are the same thing. Right. We're going to say the same thing with the breakout of what mobile is with apps and mobile web. And I think we're starting to see even more later on this year when we see Apple Pay come to mobile web, when we see Google come out with their one-click solution. Those are things that are bringing the best of the app space, and they're taking the best of the app space, which is clicking your thumb on and holding it over the home screen button, and all of a sudden, boom, you've just checked out, and that's conversion. It's not having to fill in all these fields. So I think it's now getting to the place where we're seeing things that are working on the web, things that are working in mobile web, where they're saying, all right, let's figure out how to get this into the app world, and eventually it'll just be one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally spot on. But drawing back to yesterday, I think one of my big takeaways personally from Ray Kurzweil was exponential thinking is really hard. And it's true, but we live in this world where things are moving exponentially and moving really fast. And we started out, it took a long time for the app ecosystem to really actually hit. We talked about this is the year of mobile for a
decade and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it actually was.
Right.
And now we're like, oh, but this web thing, like it's still a big deal.
It's
people,
a thing.
People care about it. A lot of traffic is driven to it. How do we actually merge these together? And I think what we're going to see is that sort of exponential growth is going to bring those together really, really quickly as well.
So that's very exciting, but also the cautionary tale of this are the traps, quite honestly, and there are plenty of them. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity, but also traps. And I want to start with you because you've a strong opinion about you can be too early on things, right?
Yeah. No, you absolutely can be too early. Like I'm one of the things that I feel is really early, which our MC John will disagree with me with, is bots and messaging, right? And
Discord, we like it.
Yeah. So I believe that we are fundamentally changing how people and consumers interact with computing, but I don't think that with the bots and voice as well, Alexas and Siris of the world, that we've nailed that yet.
Mm-hmm.
And again, actually, Ray talked about this too yesterday, right? It's like people would talk to their computers and oh, it's not good enough. Oh, it's not good enough. Oh, it's not good enough. But we've had voice forever. I think we are a little bit early, and you do have to take some caution to make sure that where you're placing your bets is going to pay off in both the short and the long term. That's
Right.
a hard problem to tackle.
I'll actually plus one on this
cosign.
one because I really feel like there's still a lot of unknown, especially for adopting bots, which I think we've heard so much about it. We see companies like Facebook and Google and everybody getting more involved in it. But for companies, we don't know yet how we're going to be able to monetize it. And that's a big thing. Yes, we want our content distributed elsewhere, but I want to also make money off that. And we don't know. And sometimes there's a challenge with being an early adopter. There's costs with being an early adopter. Think about the first TV companies that were early adopters to 3D TV. Right? 3D TV, everyone thought it could be the future, but the hardware itself was so expensive. It's the same thing we're seeing, I think, with even VR today. VR is such and AR is such a powerful platform, but I think what you're seeing today with AR, why it's adopted so easily, is because you're using one device. VR, you have to go out and actually purchase a separate device or get your hands on a separate device to do it. And until we actually get to a place where adoption there and it's easily, readily available, like AR technology with a Say game is available, it's going to be a lot of challenges. But I think how it ties into bots is the same thing. Until we see what it evolves to, sometimes there's these big costs with being that early adopter to it.
Now, the balance here is don't wait too long, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? So, I mean, again, we're a large financial institution, and we, have a little more disposable money to try out things. But I think that there is a big benefit to one, dabbling, just seeing how the technology works, and especially as again, things have been said that the scale of things that are moving, the cost going down. Dabbling doesn't take a lot. I mean, a hackathon with a couple developers and a couple APIs, you can start to build some really interesting stuff. The other thing is to pair that against going back to the customer, or who you think the potential customer is of these things that you're building, and not just simply building a chat bot to do something and without ever considering where the end use case is. And so it's dabbling with that kind of customer focus.
It's test and learn, right?
Yeah.
It's figuring out what resources you have available,
Yeah.
the effort at which it's going to be put out for, and the costs involved. And I mean, look, we're as the New York Times, we want our content distributed on every single platform wherever you want to actually consume content. It's just a matter of then figuring out what value we're providing in that platform to then ultimately monetize you. I mean, you're in the banking industry, it's completely different.
Yeah, I mean, you got to set aside.
But it is a test and learn type of thing. It's how much are you going to invest in it?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the app economy. There's talk about its demise. There's talk about its robustness. I don't think that's actually a word, but I'm going to throw it out there. Let's start with Ian. What is your view on the state of the app economy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the app economy is super strong. We Tune obviously released that data yesterday that showed no people actually are continuing to download apps, and we see that in everything that we do. But I think what we're really seeing is that convergence is taking place, and people are caring about how do they get the content that they want the fastest? Like fundamentally, consumers want to access the content that they want to access as fast as possible and as easy as possible. And that's where I think like the app economy is just sort of shifting.
Right.
It's not dying by any means, it's just shifting. And the platform owners want this too. If you're Apple, if you're Google and you're developing iOS or Android, your goal is to provide the best consumer experience possible. And part of that is giving them the content that they want as fast as they can get it and as great as they can get it. And so I think for marketers, the takeaway is how do we leverage the app and web converging to both bring the mobile web up and keep the app economy really, really strong and healthy.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I sort of agree, right? I think that it's not dead, but it's definitely morphing, right? It's, you know, and again, it goes back to this fluidity, right, between mobile web and apps, right? You know, oftentimes the reason you built apps 3-4 years ago is because that's what everyone said you needed to do. That was your mobile strategy. It was, right. What am I going to do? I'm going to build an app, right? Not everyone needs an app, right? And so, you know, thinking about the use cases and what they're for, I mean, I think the instant app stuff is, it's awesome. I mean, you know, it can unlock a lot of like niche use cases really quickly, right? I mean, customers don't care whether it's mobile web or app, just as long as the experience is wonderful and it wows them and it solves their problems, right? And, you know, if you have to do it through the app, do it through the app. If you have to do it through the web, do it through the web, but just make sure you're doing it right.
Well, one of the arguments is about competition, and you have strong thoughts on competition as well.
I don't think the app economy is dead. I think it's just mature now, right? and so I look at it from a couple years ago, and you see very few apps in the App Store, and few being a couple thousand, maybe 100,000, and a lot of devices to spread those out on. Now you see a lot of devices and a lot of apps, and that starts to become a big challenge. Then that starts to get into discoverability in the App Store, which is also a major issue. I mean, we're a company as the New York Times. We have big brand awareness, so we can use our own channels to promote app downloads. I'm sure it's the same with Wells Fargo. You can push the people who are in the banks or on your mobile website. So you already have this big base there, but what about the new consumers who are searching for news in the App Store and the placement isn't very strong? I think things that Google is doing with paid search in the App Store and what Apple's going to roll out later this year with paid search in the App Store, that's going to start to make a difference, but there's still an uphill battle because so many people are finding apps in that manner.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, like I think if you merge those two conversations of instant apps where all of a sudden you don't really have an install anymore, but you have this native-like experience with we need better discovery of what's going on within an app, you're looking at like, wow, search is really morphing and how do the app stores continue to really hold value if like the concept of an install matters less because you're just seeing a piece of the content that you care about, and you can get the content that you need within the, like you can find the content, you can discover the content that you want within the app from outside sources, whether that's a search engine or whatever. All of a sudden, like you see these things come into play, and I think that's where universal links, app links, whichever one, as well as instant apps sort of all merge into this future of app and web converging.
I want to talk a little bit, Ashir, you'd mentioned dabbling. Everybody likes a good dabble. Talk about your point of view on experimentation and dabbling and doing it in smart ways.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think from any size organization, whether it's you know, a 10-person startup to you know, a 300,000-person financial institution, I think that there's got to be some level or some tolerance to you know, push the needle, experiment, try different ways to connect with your customers. You know, it's not putting all the eggs in one basket sort of thing. It's you know, small percentage of your budget should be allocated to this, right? And thinking through ways that you're just going to better the experience. I think even going back to this kind of app economy model, right? I think about, I've talked to and advised a lot of smaller startups, you know, how are you going to get traction and discoverability in the App Store? And the chances are it's going to be very difficult, you know, without paying for, you know, buying users. And so, you know, look towards the other opportunities. Messenger has, you know, abilities to connect in. Alexa has opportunities to connect in. There's a lot of new platforms that have customer bases that are growing and, you know, that were the app economy, you know, 5 years ago or 4 years ago. And so there are new places for newer companies, newer startups to get their feet wet, get a customer base that, you know, really is engaged by this and really start to grow upon that. And I think that is, you know, one of the ways to successfully dabble.
Scott, testing wasn't always the thing for you, but now it is.
I mean, testing was always a thing for me. It just was the challenges of actually accomplishing it internally.
Right.
And when I first started at the New York Times, I mean, we didn't do app A/B testing for, I want to say, about a year. But when I first, I came in and it was at the time, it was 2014, early 2014. The peak of the App Store market was around 2013 for us, and seeing the volume that was coming through. So I really focused hard on iOS. Then I started focusing a little bit more on Android just because of the volume of where the subscriptions were coming through. But as traffic continued to increase on mobile web, I knew I had to do something. And we weren't ever testing on mobile web in particular. Yet we have a bunch of different marketing assets. You have the growl, which is basically the piece that tells you how many pieces of content you have left in a month out of 10. You have this subscribe button at the top. You have the gateway after you've consumed your 10 pieces of content. And we weren't doing anything. I said to the team, look, we don't have a solution to do this, but if we can just start optimizing each of these assets and just changing the design or changing the messaging to take it from looking like something that was created in 1998, which is what the pay flow looked like. The pay flow was so bad that people I think went to it and just felt like you were taking them to such an unsecure site. Why would they actually pay? And starting to just optimize that was significant returns on each investment that we made. And it was a long, painful process, but we eventually got to the point where now throughout the company, despite marketing always asking for it, products started asking to do it more. And I think that was one of the ways that you can start to influence other areas in the company. I think as a mobile marketer in particular, you have to understand product just as much as you understand marketing. There's nuances, there's technology differences, and that's something I've always stressed on the team. And I think by understanding the technology that's available and the nuances of the mobile platform, it was able to build up this relationship with product at the times where they started getting more exciting about testing, and now everybody's testing. It's not as often as I would like, but we all do it.
I want to move on to something. I want you to start with this one, the hype cycle. And the noise. What, in your opinion, is the hype to avoid? Conversely, what is the hype to embrace at this moment in time?
Yeah, so I think we've hit on a couple of them already, and maybe I'll dive in further. So to embrace, I am all about seeing, if we're talking about dabbling as well, I'm all about seeing what happens with instant apps. I think instant apps is just a fantastic addition to our technology stack. I think it's going to be really, really killer for marketers, for consumers, for the platforms. It's a great way for us to move forward and actually figure out how to have that app-like experience with that merged with that web-like ease of discovery and linking and things like that. On the avoid side, like the voice stuff, I can't get over it.
Such a hater.
I have an Echo, and Alexa is a Spotify speaker. Like that's what it is. And I think, like, don't get me wrong. I think voice, and I think Echo's a great product. But I think voice is just too early. Like there's a lot of potential there. It's just like there's way too much hype going along with it.
Right. It's a joke machine in our house. Alexa, tell me a joke.
So I don't have kids yet, but I have nieces who just visited, 10 and 8 years old, and they wanted to hear a Katy Perry song. So I just like screamed out to play Katy Perry, and they were like, "What is this thing?" And then
the song or
the device, and then they were like, "Whoa." And like they went into the kitchen and like they were trying to figure out where it came from, and then they were like, "Alexa, tell me a joke." And I was like, "How did you know to go there? Like,
I know,
how did
right?
it become a joke thing right away?"
Right. At least my son's not saying, "Alexa, tell us what Dad's bank account balance is." Ashir.
Yeah. So
everybody get ready to drink. I'm about to say Pokemon Go. No, but in all seriousness, one to embrace, in your opinion, is AR.
Yeah, I mean, I think AR and VR, I mean, again, I kind of got a longer horizon, 3 to 5 years, right? So I think now it's starting to peak out. We did some really interesting stuff with AR about 2 years ago with the company Mateo, and it was very interesting how customers, and especially actually for that segment, it was for kids, were engaged and just fell in love with it, like turning our little pony that we hand out during the Christmas time into, this animated pony that they could color, and then they could, people actually really enjoyed it. It kind of went off to the, AR died out for a little while again, and then, with Pokemon Go coming out, I think there's that resurgence. I mean, at least I see my email box. I got like 5 emails about AR while I was at this conference. Hey, what is this Pokemon Go? Should we, and again, I think it's figuring out what niche you're trying to solve, right? I think, when you think of a bank, we're not a very engaging, we're going to show your balance, we're going to pay your bills, we're going to be, a very functional organization. And I think AR and VR really give us this opportunity to be more than that, right? To be a lifestyle brand, to be engaging. And to be there. And so we've actually done some interesting stuff with VR where we've got, at the booths around the US, our experiential marketing team has the VR setup where you can run around an island and find Wells Fargo drinks and, do these different things. And I tried it. I loved it. It was, it was a little disorienting afterwards, but it was fun. So. Big fan.
To avoid real quick, and we're running up on time here, but just real quickly, what's an avoid for you?
Again, I think it's to just buy into technology for the sake of buying into technology, or someone tells you that this is the way to go, right? That your strategy is not based on any logic. It's just, I got an email from a top person at my company, and they need us to work on this, right? And you should have some rationale. Does it really appeal to the customer segment that you're going for? And so it's rationalizing those things.
Okay. Scott, your big avoid, get ready to drink again.
No, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I saw you all last night. The biggest avoid is hiring people with just web backgrounds and putting them into mobile roles. I think that's some of the biggest challenges that we're seeing with executives across a number of companies. People think mobile is just mobile. And as I said, it's a different technology. It's a different nuance. It's understanding the behavior and the patterns that happen on there and figuring out how to optimize that. There's very few people, and this crowd, obviously, you're here, you know mobile, you understand mobile, but avoid hiring people just for the sake of hiring people. I'd rather hire someone with 3 years of dedicated mobile experience than someone with 6 and putting them in a senior role. The world is mobile today, and I think sometimes people forget that. People think, we can have the web people think about mobile, but they think, mobile is too niche. And really, it's just you need that expertise where they are.
Right.
In terms of where I'm kind of bullish right now, it's the Apple Pay stuff for mobile web, especially for us as a company that sells something like a digital subscription. I remember I went out to Cupertino to meet with Apple ahead of time to walk through this, and I walked out of the room just being like, I am so excited about this. Like, this is a game changer for the space right now. And we committed to being a launch partner with them. They featured us on stage at WWDC this year. And we continue to iterate and figure out what we can do. We're essentially taking something that is a 6-7 step process, and I can now put a button on the actual article page itself, and that's the checkout process. And we're not the only company that's going to be doing it. There's going to be a lot of companies that are doing it, but figure out the way to get out the door very quickly with this, because this could be the game changer for business today in e-commerce.
We're going to wrap up. You each get to say one sentence. So this is me stalling for time to have you think about it. One actionable thing that people can take away today to improve what they're doing. One actionable thing. And I'm saying more words to let you think. Who wants to go? Ashir, you look like you're ready. It's like a bad game, isn't it?
Again, I think it's where I started. Be dynamic, right? Be dynamic in your strategy. Be dynamic in understanding what your customers want. It's, figuring out how to solve their needs and be there for them, and make that the experience that you're after.
Ian,
maybe I'll do it in 4 words. Embrace new technologies responsibly.
Yes. Okay, that is 4 words. Okay. Portland thing.
Great marketing can't overcome a bad conversion funnel. And so for marketers out there, you have to invest in the product in itself and figure out the ways. Even the best marketing is not going to overcome a horrible experience where you send people to. So making sure that you're just invested in the product itself and that frictionless process to get someone from your marketing campaign to clicking checkout is very important. Even if you have the best marketing in the world, you're not going to be able to overcome that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ashir, Ian, Scott. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. And again, thank you to all of you for being here in Seattle. This is, dirty little secret. I love coming up to Seattle as much as I possibly can. Though you are invited to Portland, if you'd like to. I'm on the app, so reach out to me if you want to plan your Portland vacation. I'm happy to help you with that. But I do want to thank you for spending the time here and great panelists and a great conversation. And go out and go make kick-ass things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you. Closing it up strong. Yeah. So now what we'd like to do is invite you out to a lawn party. How's that sound? We're going to do lunch. We're going to have boats circling through. Each of the boats are going to be doing an 1.5-hour cruises in and out. So if you've got a flight, you can schedule it based on that. If you've got luggage, you should take your luggage with you because we have luggage check over there for you. We're also going to have shuttles out here, so if you want to hop on a shuttle, or you can enjoy the 10-minute walk, as you can see behind me, over to Mohai. So yeah, you should be able to kind of follow the mob and get over there. I just want to obviously close out by saying some thank yous. And I'm going to actually make you give some applause for each of these. First, to all our amazing speakers this week, our keynotes, our panelists, our thought leaders, please give it up for all of those people that took the time to create all those slide decks, do all those prep calls. Also, to the Tune marketing team and everyone else that's involved with putting on this event, they pay attention to some details, and they pull this off with flying colors. Please give them a round of applause. They do such a great job, right? I want to say thank you to Lucas and Lee for founding Tune and really empowering everybody at this company to be really great at what they do. I hope you can see that through Postback, but even more so from our products and from our service. It really does come from really letting everyone in this company take control, take ownership, and do the things that they know how to do the best. Yeah, let's give it up for Tune. And for Lucas and Lee. Our stage and our house staff here at McCall Hall, these people are incredibly professional. They are such good-natured people dealing with all of us weirdos, and they're wonderful to work with, and they're the ones that make this run so smoothly. Please give a round of applause to everyone on AV, backstage, in the house. Thank you so much. And most of all, I want to thank all of you for being social and being open. I think you accomplished that pretty well. And that's really what makes this whole industry that's something incredible to be a part of. I'm very humbled to get to spend time with each of you. And let's continue it on. I've been asked to do an encore. And though I'm not going to totally do an encore, if you give me a little bit of help, I will do one thing. You guys want to do at Postback, you can be a new man together? Yeah? We're going to start it? All right, you ready? At Postback, you can be a new man. At Postback, you can... Come on. Okay. Do you want to try again? Okay, at Postback, you can be a new man. At Postback, you can be a new man. At Postback, you can be a new man. All right, nice work. I'm louder than you. So we've got shuttles outside, and or enjoy the walk over there. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much.